He's immensely seductive. Quite sure he's right. Obsessionally neurotic. Pretty dangerous, in fact.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
Do you mean you doubt your powers to convince him?
Say it! Say it!
All right, I'll say it.
Worse than that. What I'm afraid of is his power to convince me.
We're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
Sweetheart, be reasonable.
What? This is the end game.
I mean, as long as you're reasonable. You have to be reasonable. We have to be reasonable. Thank you very much.
You don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
Chris, please explain to the normie we need to finish what we've started.
All right, everybody. It is Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025, the 184th day of the Golden Age. I'm your moderator, Chris Paul. Let's be reasonable. I can see that people are already popping off in the chat, so I might as well get that out of the way. AJC gifting 5 subscriptions. Beth doing the same thing. Thank you all very much. And I imagine the people in the chat with you are thanking you as well. Okay, so episode today, subscriber stream on Friday for Substack subscribers, paid subscribers, that is. And that stream will show on Substack and on Rumble Premium. So if you are a Rumble Premium subscriber, in addition to being a Substack subscriber of mine, you'll be able to watch that on Rumble. Otherwise, Substack is the place to do it. And with that, I hope you all had a good weekend and a good start to this week. And let's get into it. Okay, so about, a month, 2 months ago, we talked about Nick Land at some length, an article he had written in his now, I think, dormant Substack. And we talked about the concept of the progressive ratchet, the idea that progressives would keep progressing, bringing the system further along, according to that global regime agenda, which is a progressive agenda. It's a communist agenda. It's for total control and domination of all the world's people, okay? So it's going to gravitate toward one of those ends regardless. But the idea that progressive ratchet is, if you think of a ratchet wrench, it twists in one way, and then it resets back to the original, and then it twists again and back to the start position, and then twists again, and it just keeps going. The nut on the bolt would only, or the screw, not really a screw with a ratchet, but it would only get tighter, never looser. That's the point of the ratchet. And then, of course, you can turn a ratchet back around and make it only looser and not tighter. But I don't know if you can do that to the progressive ratchet, but we'll see. So the idea being that advancements are made in the progressive agenda, and then conservatives who pretend to be the opposite of progressives, at least in our uniparty society, the way our politics are, there is no actual conservative resistance to the progressive agenda. There is just the marketing of the progressive agenda to conservatives, or people who think they're conservatives, in order to get them to go along with the parts of the agenda that the Democrats hate. And so each side will like about half of the agenda and dislike about another half of the agenda, or even, I suppose more accurately, within that, they will represent that they like a number of things in the agenda. They don't even necessarily like those things. They just know that the cultural incentives are behind supporting those things. So they will support that agenda as it goes on. But each side has that same role. And so the idea that there are conservatives that are going to stop the progressive ratchet, much less turn it around, well, that's just not the case in a uniparty scenario. And that's exactly the scenario we find ourselves in. And so I bring this up today because obviously the conservative establishment has no interest in doing that. They are the liberals, the progressives' partners in the implementation of that agenda. They're not going to stop it. They're not going to reverse it. But Trump might, and MAGA might. And it seems like we are actually seeing real world progress and difference in that direction. And that's what I was thinking about when I saw these couple Trump Truth Social posts from over the weekend. This is his first one. There we are. He said, the Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. There is a big clamoring for this. Likewise, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams with a storied past. Our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. Their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. We are a country of passion and common sense. Owners, get it done. So Donald Trump is weighing in once again on the Washington Commanders and Cleveland Guardians changing the names of their franchises back to the Washington Redskins and the Cleveland Indians. I would agree that there's probably a lot of support behind that. But I want to think about what this would mean, because I expect, because he's spent so much time on it, that it's going somewhere, that he's going to be successful in this, and that the teams are going to change their names back. Actually, you know what? Before we get into that part, though, let's just go ahead and read Donald Trump's second Truth Social post. He followed up later in the day and said this. My statement on the Washington Redskins has totally blown up, but only in a very positive way. I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous moniker Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington. The team would be much more valuable and the deal would be much more exciting for everyone. Cleveland should do the same thing with the Cleveland Indians. The owner of the Cleveland baseball team, Matt Dolan, who is very political, has lost 3 elections in a row because of that ridiculous name change. What he doesn't understand is that if he changed the name back to Cleveland Indians, he might actually win an election. Indians are being treated very unfairly. Make Indians great again, MEGA. Now, he just used MEGA a few weeks back to say make Iran great again. And then we were told by the people in the pro-Nazi op online that MEGA actually meant make Israel great again, because, of course, Trump is sold out to Israel. And he was actually talking about that, not Iran. Very cute, very clever. Oh, you nailed him, guys. So MEGA, make Iran great again. Now it's make Indians great again. He talks about Matt Dolan. I think he's the son of Charles Dolan. Hold for 1 second. Sorry. I think Charles Dolan was the original owner, but Matt Dolan is a Republican. He has been in the Republican State House and the state Senate, and he ran in the Republican primaries for U.S. Senate in both 2022 and 2024. Very interesting. You know, Cleveland is in Ohio. And Ohio is that state that J.D. Vance is from. And, you know, there's going to be, I think that did Bernie Moreno take J.D. Vance's seat? I thought there was a Senate opening coming up. Hold on. Hold for processing. Next Ohio Senate election. I don't like a hold for processing this early in the show. I really don't. Okay. Yes, the next U.S. Senate election in Ohio will be a special election held on November 3rd, 2026. This election is scheduled to fill the remainder of the term vacated by Senator J.D. Vance, who resigned after being sworn in as vice president. Governor Mike DeWine appointed Lieutenant Governor John Husted interim senator, and he's going to serve until 2026. So, what is Trump saying when he's telling Matt Dolan that he's going to win the election if he changes the name of the Cleveland Guardians, which is interestingly the kind of nickname, the name of the soldiers or the members of the Space Force. They are Guardians as well. So you have Guardians and Commanders, two kind of military terms. Very interesting, probably not connected to anything except for this obvious info op. And so Trump is telling Matt Dolan, change the name from Cleveland Guardians to Cleveland Indians, and you're going to win your next election. I bet you're going to win your next election. It's kind of incredible, isn't it? Wasn't Vivek going to run for that Senate seat, and now he's running for governor or something? Vivek Ramaswamy. By the way, you know what? I have a Vivek Ramaswamy quote from or video clip from so long ago that I have forgotten to play. Actually, I've never had a correct time to play it in many months. I think I saved this back in, where's the date? Oh, no date. March. There we go. Here's Vivek.
Being consistent about my policies where...
So your father is not a citizen of the United States?
He's not.
Okay. And your mother, when did your mom take the citizenship test? Was it before or after you were born?
After I was born.
After you were born. Okay.
After years of being in this, following the legal process of becoming a naturalized citizen, she followed it through the legal process. And
so you gained citizenship through birthright then?
Well, but you gain citizenship through birthright citizenship in that sense too, right? I mean, every American. So what I want to do is revive a vision of citizenship where every kid who enjoys...
I'm sorry, just to backtrack. So your father is not a citizen, your mother...
They came to this country legally.
Just saying. I remember back in 2022, or what was it? Mid to late 2023, by the time he began running in the fake Republican primary, and all the podcast bros were like, oh man, this guy Vivek has some really good things to say. No, he didn't. He just sounded like J.D. Vance speaking their language and doing it on a national political stage. Ron DeSantis did the same thing. All of them trying to appeal to MAGA. They're going a little bit on the edgy side of establishment republicanism. So anyhow, Vivek in Ohio, Matt Dolan in Ohio, it sounds like Trump is saying, I'm going to have the fake election appoint you as senator if you change this name back. And I would expect that he's going to change that name back. And I would expect that the Washington Redskins are going to be the Washington Redskins again. That's Trump wheeling and dealing with Major League Baseball and with the NFL, two massive billion-dollar industry champions. I mean, I guess there's kind of some other baseball, but not really. And there are upstart football leagues, one of which Donald Trump was a team owner during back in, 80s, 90s. And that league is back, actually, the USFL. And they have, eight teams or something. It would be awesome if there was a competitor that took out the NFL or took out MLB. I mean, it's not like I want them. I don't hate them that much that I want them to go away. But if that was to happen, because they are all regime corporate oligarchs totally fed in to that system, and nothing can be done to remove that effect from the league, well, then an upstart league that competes with it, if players started going there, if the talent started moving there because the money was there, why wouldn't we watch that league instead? And we're seeing a parallel to that with the PGA and the Live Golf Tour, which Donald Trump has supported and the Saudis support. So what could be going on? We will see. We will see. If Trump doesn't get those names switched back, that would be a surprise to me. And I think it would also be an indication that he's probably about done with the NFL. But the point is that this is a reversing of the progressive ratchet. Okay. They got their way. No one liked it. They got their toy taken back away from them, and it's never going to be given back. We're never going to do that thing with the team name changes again. Trump is making sure that right now, okay? Making this loud cultural change, saying, see, that thing was an anomaly. That is not what our culture actually represents. Okay, we can get rid of that. We can move on from it. That was from 3 or 4 years ago. It was a different time then. Everything was upside down. But now things can be righted. We don't have to remain in that world. That does not have to be the totality of our existence. We can reverse these trends, and you're seeing Donald Trump do it. So it goes from, let's say, Redskins is the default, the starting position. It ratchets to Commanders, and it never goes back. And that's the trend we've always seen. Whenever it comes to these cultural issues, it never, ever goes back. It just gets more. It just gets worse. Okay. The impact of the BLM stuff and the gay stuff on the sports leagues. Okay. Now we have these women's leagues, and the women's league has to be included in the men's league, the professional league, video games and everything. It's just the culture is enmeshed so that the women's sport is presented at the same level the men's sport is. And hey, no offense, women, but give me a break. Okay. There's like some strange movement right now to the NBA, WNBA players wearing shirts. I think it's called Pay Me What I'm Worth. Well, that's what they're doing. You're already getting paid more than you're worth because virtually no one wants to watch women's basketball, and it costs too much to produce it as entertainment relative to how many people are entertained by it. Okay. And yes, I know that they're selling Caitlin Clark in a race war and all this nonsense. Oh, it's so fundamentally good. No, who cares? Come on. Okay. So the progressive ratchet always making it worse. And now we are seeing it work back the other way. And I think that that is pretty incredible. I think it also portends good things like this in the future because we don't actually have to stay there with them. That's just how it has always worked because it's always been a uniparty. Okay. We have all these political trends that we expect are like, this is not going to work well for part of the audience, but the law of gravity, right? This irrefutable constant. All right. Let's just pretend. Okay. All these political laws that we thought were set in stone, these are pieces of political analysis, political science theory, and they've lasted through our whole lives. I heard one of them yesterday on War Room. This guy, Jim Rickards, was on. I think he has a lot of interesting things to say. This is not a Jim Rickards hate moment, okay? But he said something that I think is repeating one of those things that everybody knows and takes for granted, even though it's not true. Maybe it was true in a former era. I doubt it. Maybe it was true in a former era. It's not true now. He was talking about the major superpowers in the world, the United States, Russia, and China, the only real superpowers. Everything is secondary to those three superpowers. And he was talking about how the idea is always for two of them to collude against the other. And the strategy was that America would collude with China to weaken Russia. And now America needs to collude with Russia to weaken China. I don't think these rivalries are as described. So that point makes no sense to me. But that was the traditional political analysis. That was true since the 1970s. Okay. I'm sure that that political analysis has, quote unquote, been true for the last 50 years. I have no doubt about it, which is why Jim Rickards is still committed to it as a foundation in his analysis, despite it not being reflective of the real world at all. Okay. It's just one of those things that you kind of lock in as something known, even though there's no basis for it. There's nothing underlying that. Okay. You can't dig down and see, oh, the United States and Russia need to collude to take down China. Well, that's not going to happen. China and Russia are not adversarial. So why would Russia collude with the United States to take down China? Donald Trump's not adversarial with Vladimir Putin or with Xi Jinping. And in fact, it seems like there is just a pretty clear decoupling going on from the influence of the global regime via the American Uniparty in these other countries. And those leaders are probably pretty happy about that, which is why they're happy to make trade deals with Donald Trump. So we don't need to think about that political analysis anymore, right? It's silly. It was probably always silly if we understand that we have the global regime and the people of the world, the sovereign nationalist leaders of the world leading those people and leading sovereign nations. And when those are the two sides, and they were also the two sides 50 years ago, well, chances are that the dynamic was the same then too. And maybe they thought, because the global regime was in control, that they could combine their resources to subdue a sovereign nationalist country. But when there's sovereign nationalist leaders controlling all three of those nations, nothing like that is going to happen. All right? It doesn't even make sense, which is why we have to let it go. So the point, though, is there are a bunch of things we take for granted, a bunch of things we believe everybody knows, just this default knowledge we refer to. It is so certain about the world that we can use it as the foundation for other beliefs and opinions and analysis. And it is always a terrible idea to do that unless you've traced back the roots of that claim. And I doubt, and again, not trying to be hard on Jim Rickards, who I think is well-intentioned and knows a lot of things. I doubt that he has gone down to the roots on that stuff. If he did 50 years ago, which I doubt, it certainly doesn't seem that he has recently. Okay? Because if you go down to the roots on a claim like that, in this day and age, you're not going to find that conclusion. Okay? You might be able to find evidence that would suggest collusion between two of the countries, but all of that would just be wiped away by all of the evidence pointing to a peaceable relationship among non-adversarial leaders. Understanding the balance of the superpowers is necessary, but also understanding that direct confrontation is not the way to go. We can actually solve these relationships through balanced trade now that that top-down centralizing authority is no longer controlling things. All right. So this age-old political knowledge has to be removed. All right. These things that everybody knows, that everybody says, it's like everything on the mainstream media. The point they always make is, oh, I've got this old political adage for you. It's all the economy, stupid. No, it's fake elections. Okay, that's what the big difference in elections. It's all the economy. It's the economy, stupid. No. The point is, we are in a different era. We are in an era of different understanding, okay, and awakening. The traditional political knowledge, if it was true at any point in the past up till today, it's no longer true after today. And I don't mean today in particular, but this era, okay? It's no longer true because we can see the true nature of the controlled opposition. We can see the true nature of the political party and what it means about our government and about our elections and about the laws that govern us and the taxes we pay and the military adventures we support, okay? And upon realizing all of those things, all of that past political analysis just immediately becomes nonsensical. It is totally detached from any discernible reality right now. it might still map on to reality as we understand it, because understanding reality that way is baked into our conditioning. That's what we've been brainwashed to understand. Of course, we will just keep all their traditional political analysis in our heads. That's what it's designed to do, is to get in there, sound smart, and stay there. You remember all the slogans. The slogans are created so that they sound smart and easily accessible, so that everyone accesses them. And upon memorizing them, everyone feels smart, like they know something about how the real world works because they've memorized the slogans. Let's keep going. Last week. Oh, no. Pardon me for 1 second here. I think I missed one of my Colbert articles. We're gonna move on without that particular Colbert article and just go to this particular Colbert article. This is the Associated Press from, what was it, Saturday? Did money or Friday, sorry. Did money or politics cause Colbert cancellation? Either way, the economics are tough for TV. All right. CBS says its decision to end Stephen Colbert's late night comedy show is financial, not political. Yet even with the ample skepticism about that explanation, there's no denying the economics were not working in Colbert's favor. The network's bombshell announcement late Thursday that the Late Show will end next May takes away President Donald Trump's most prominent TV critic and the most popular entertainment program in its genre. So it's number one out of like 3, according to the Associated Press. The television industry's declining economic health means similar hard calls are already being made with personalities and programming, with others to be faced in the future. For the late night genre, there are unique factors to consider. As recently as 2018, broadcast networks took in an estimated $439 million in advertising revenue for its late night programs, for their late night programs. Nice job, Associated Press. According to the advertising firm Guidelines, last year that number dwindled to 220 million. And here is, I think, the interesting part, because we were told last week that young men are leaving Donald Trump in droves. They are just so upset about the Jeffrey Epstein files that they are just leaving Donald Trump. I can't believe you did this to us, Trump. Late night TV was a particular draw for young men, considered the hardest to get and most valuable demographic for advertisers. Increasingly, these viewers are turning to streaming services, either to watch something else entirely or catch highlights of the late night shows, which are much more difficult for the networks to monetize. More broadly, the much predicted takeover of viewers by streaming services is coming to pass. The Nielsen Company reported that during the last 2 months, for the first time ever, more people consumed programming on services like YouTube and Netflix than on ABC, CBS, and NBC, or any cable network. Networks and streamers spent roughly $70 billion on entertainment shows, producing them and broadcasting them, this means, and $30 billion for sports rights last year, which are the fees that they pay the professional sports leagues in order to be able to broadcast their games as an official partner and then make all the advertising revenue, which is basically just massive regime-aligned American corporations and transnational corporations projecting a false view of reality so that people will believe it while they think they're being entertained. This is according to Brian Weiser, CEO of Madison & Wall, an advertising consultant and data services firm. Live sports is the most dependable magnet for viewers, and costs for its rights are expected to increase 8% a year over the next decade. With television viewership declining in general, it's clear where savings will have to come from. And so there is all of this upset on the left about Colbert being fired and about Trump going after Colbert. I don't know what to make of that stuff. it's a bit comical, really, to understand that a television character who gets paid $20 million a year, let's find out. How much does Stephen Colbert make to do his CBS show? Apologies on how annoying it is to listen to me narrate my own typing. Colbert earns about $15 million a year. This is what is reported under his 2019 CBS contract and reaffirmed in mid-2023 when he signed a new 3-year deal through 2026. So his contract is not being re-upped. Despite his salary, the show has reportedly been running at around $40 million annual loss in recent years, a factor in the decision. The show reportedly has a production budget north of $100 million annually, with his salary being a significant portion of that. They were losing $40 million a year to broadcast that propaganda in the middle of the night in an era where people don't really watch TV anymore. Even to the extent that I watch TV, it's movies or streaming shows, and I don't watch too many of those anymore. Imagine it still being part of someone's routine to turn on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert every night. Now, no offense, boomers. I know as soon as you hear the word, it sends you into a tizzy. I know not all boomers. Hashtag not all boomers. But I don't know who could possibly be watching that show live at, I think, 11:30 Eastern every night, except for deranged, old, liberal, boomer ladies. I don't know who else could be doing it. Who else is watching that show that they spend $100 million a year to make? It's mind blowing. I had to share this article from the commie rag Vox because it is just so very funny. We are about to get some conspiracy theories. This is Vox. There's a bigger story behind Colbert's cancellation. Okay, well, tell us what it is. And here we are. The last line of the announcement that the Late Show's cancellation has nothing to do with other matters happening at Paramount seems directly aimed at tamping down speculation about CBS and Paramount Global's political motivations for canceling a decades-long fixture of network television. Paramount Global is currently attempting to merge with Skydance Media, and company leadership has been acting tough as though they are concerned that President Donald Trump might try to block the merger. Earlier this month, CBS and 60 Minutes announced a $16 million settlement in its lawsuit with Trump over the editing of a segment about former Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris, an extraordinary concession for a media company in a case that experts agree CBS would likely have won in court. Okay, experts agree that CBS likely would have won? That is not a real standard to believe that CBS likely would have won. Are the experts looking at all the evidence? Do the experts know what's going on behind the scenes in the first place? They would have won. What in the world does that mean? We watched Fox settle with Dominion for $787 million in a case that is almost definitely fake. And I think we'll probably find that out one day. But they settled in that case despite having evidence in Dominion's own discovery that Dominion knows its machines cannot produce a credible, reliable, accurate election result that reflects the will and intent of the people who believed they were voting when they were hitting the screen. and feeding their QR code receipt into another screen. Days before the cancellation, Colbert said on his show, "I am offended by the settlement. I don't know if anything will repair my trust in this company. But just taking a stab at it, I'd say $16 million would help," he quipped. The payout, he added, was a big fat bribe. So CBS is bribing Donald Trump to make sure that Trump's FCC will not prevent the Paramount and Skydance merger. That's the story we're getting. And Colbert will no longer trust CBS. And 3 days later, CBS announced that Colbert was being canceled at the end of the contract that's expiring next year. There's a lot going on in this info op, and none of it sounds real, to be honest. But hey, I know it could happen this way, and therefore we're just going to have to default to believing this. People really do still operate on that epistemology now, and it is mind-boggling. The network's stated reason for canceling the show has the sheen of believability. Oh. It's true that the late-night ecosystem is struggling. Okay. Still, Colbert's show has consistently led the ratings for its time slot. CBS and Paramount Global, The Atlantic contended on Thursday, no longer deserve the benefit of the doubt. So we're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and instead we're going to push forward this conspiracy theory that Donald Trump was bribed to allow this merger to go through. It sounds like they don't want that merger to go through, or like they want to be able to hit Donald Trump with more claims of corruption. So we have a multi-level conspiracy theory because the news has decided not to give the benefit of the doubt to CBS and Paramount Global, or at least The Atlantic has, and that's enough to repeat their claim. We can factor their conspiracy theory into our conspiracy theory. So great. On Truth Social, Trump, a frequent target of Colbert's jokes, is celebrating. "I absolutely love that Colbert got fired," Trump posted Friday morning. "His talent was even less than his ratings." And I was going to read that post, so I guess I've just ruined it. Colbert's ousting feels symbolic, not just of CBS's apparent decision to bow down to Trump, but of the end of late-night political comedy as a genre. Sure, John Oliver's Last Week Tonight continues gamely on HBO, but the kind of late-night show that felt urgent and necessary 20 years ago, the stalwart, outraged host cracking wise about the foibles of the corrupt federal government and the credulous media ecosystem that enabled it, has been fading for a long time. Now its moment is coming to a close. And again, we have one of those lifelong political staples. There's probably, I would guarantee, I would bet, and if anyone in the chat wants to check, I would bet, wait, I just totally lost what I was going to say. As soon as I looked over at the Rumble, what an idiot. Okay, yes, the political trends lasting for a long time. The thing that we all know, I would bet that there are college courses about the impact of late night comedy shows on American politics. Political science courses on that. If anybody wants to check, by all means, go ahead. That's how much of a staple it is, and I bet that they do have those. So it's been a staple throughout our lives. Okay, Johnny Carson was on television before I was born. I grew up in the era of David Letterman and Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien. That was when I was a teenager into my early adult years. And I used to, in maybe about 20 years ago, when DVR came out, I would like DVR the late night shows, the Daily Show, the Colbert Report, and then Conan O'Brien, and watch the 2 Comedy Central shows, and then the opening monologue by Conan, because it was something to have on television when there was nothing else to watch on television. And at that point, I watched what I didn't think at the time was a lot of television, but was a lot of television. I would watch a lot of sports. I would watch those late night shows. And then if I wanted, I would watch, a cable show or Seinfeld or something. And now I look back and think, God, that was a lot of time spent in front of the television watching particularly this kind of fare. And yes, it has been fading for a long time, but why is that? And how is it that we just don't have an appetite for this anymore? It's not just about people's media habits changing, although that's also true. We don't have a taste for this style of television presentation. And so just another thing that has been taken as a given throughout our entire lives is disappearing before our eyes. This is Trump's. Hold on 1 second here. Just getting my rundown straight. This is Trump's post responding to the Colbert announcement. He says, I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings. I hear Jimmy Kimmel is next. Has even less talent than Colbert. Greg Gutfeld is better than all of them combined, including the moron on NBC who ruined the once great Tonight Show. Good point. I think he had another one today about Kimmel. Here it is. Sounds like Kimmel could be next. The word is, and it's a strong word at that, Jimmy Kimmel is next to go in the untalented late night sweepstakes, and shortly thereafter, Fallon will be gone. These are people with absolutely no talent who were paid millions of dollars for, in all cases, destroying what used to be great television. It's really good to see them go, and I hope I played a major part in it, and I suspect that he very likely did play a major part in that. And I would also expect that Jimmy Kimmel is probably on his way out. And so what does that mean? He's got George Stephanopoulos at ABC hung as a trophy on his wall. He's got CBS and 60 Minutes hung as a trophy on his wall. He's, I think, claiming Colbert as a trophy on his wall. He's going to claim Kimmel. And then, as we're going to talk about in a few minutes, he's going to go after Rupert Murdoch and the Fox empire. And so he will subdue every single one of these massive media corporations. That seems to be the trend. It's going to be all of them. And they're going to, probably many of them, reach settlements because that's what's actually happening. It's just one side negotiating against the other side. And one side has all the leverage. The other side knows that they don't have a lot of all the leverage, but they still have some things they can do that would make the American people and the people of the world ultimately suffer. And that's the trade-off, okay? There is enough leverage on the Trump side to simply subdue these organizations quickly. I would suggest they've probably been subdued already. But they are negotiating a retreat. That's what they're doing, trying to hold on to as much territory as they have, believing that Trump is using his leverage and they are stopping that leverage somewhere, which would normally, if they were actually finding a neutral point at which to stop the leverage, right? If they just agreed at a neutral point, then you might think that they have some chance, but they're not agreeing at a neutral point. They're agreeing at a retreat point every moment, and they do it consistently. So you know he has all the leverage, and he's just negotiating them backwards. And that plays out over time because they're trying to defend themselves. It's existential. Of course they're going to defend themselves at all costs. And so he just extracts energy from them over time, makes them look terrible. Then it eases up and he says, it's okay. Then all of a sudden he finds out about another thing they did. And he has all this new leverage because the public is getting Trump's back on these things. The public doesn't care that Stephen Colbert is going away. The public cares more, even though we're told not to, that CBS edits its interviews to make populist candidates like Donald Trump look bad. That's not the only interview they've ever done that in. It could have been a total setup, by the way. And I think a lot of things are like that. I've said many times, I think that we are watching fictional retellings of real stories of the past. If we are watching, if these stories are all just written as info ops to move the collective consciousness in a certain direction, well, that would just be nothing but lying if that was all it was. If instead it is a translation layer for something that has already been taken care of, well, we can then see it in a new light. And I think that's what's happening. And I think that I have presented that as an established pattern over these last few years. You know, some new listener who hears me say this on a show will say, okay, that's a conspiracy theory. There's no way these things aren't real and they're just retellings of these old stories. Really? Seems like a lot of old stories are being retold. And the details of the retelling are always in question. And eventually we just move on from the details and decide that we believe Donald Trump's side. And that's what the country does by and large. You can see the narrative domination in play with Donald Trump. But he has all the leverage. So the question then is, how do you conduct the negotiation if you have all the leverage and if there are real lives at stake, the stability of the world at stake, potentially all these foreign relationships being established and all that? That is, I just saw a comment about the WNBA and it popped right up on my main screen. And I was like, I read that in like 2 seconds, not even 2 seconds, whatever it takes to read that. And then my mind just goes immediately there. The comment, by the way, now that I've blown the end of my point, is the WNBA shirts say, "Pay me what you owe me." Yeah, I wonder if they're trying to play off the old Rihanna smash hit song from like 10 years ago or something. Pay me what you owe me. Yeah, I bet they are. So that's going to be their hashtag trend. It is exactly the same as the women's pay gap nonsense that we used to get back in the Obama era. Hopefully, this is just a rerun of that, broadcast on, well, not national television, but it's forced into the eyes of every sports fan in the country. Hey, remember the WNBA? Got to get some of this WNBA. Anyhow, so back to my point about Trump's leverage. This is a negotiation, a constant negotiation. Trump is always in mid-negotiation. He has all of these leverage points. Much of that leverage is just due to all the Trump cards he has remaining. They have it all. They can roll these stories out and have them be substantially at bottom true till the end of days, especially if they're working in the model that I just described. And I think that they might be, because the information level, the information warfare, is the most important level at which this war is being fought. So the collective consciousness, again, I've said this a million times, that's what really matters. This is a contest for the collective consciousness. And Donald Trump is able to win that contest every time, as soon as the emotion and the commitment to the storyline has been brought up to that fever pitch, as it was in the Epstein thing. People put their reputations on the line going after Donald Trump. And then they find out, they wait for this story, for the other shoe to drop. This is going to prove that I finally am right about one of these things. And then it never does. Again, these people are the conspiracy theorists. What they believe is happening in reality is not happening in reality. And they keep thinking that reality is going to go a certain way. It doesn't go that way. Strange, isn't it? because these people all used to be the ones who we were told represented the central narrative, the official story. They were the experts. They knew what was going on. It turns out they don't know anything. So all the leverage is on Donald Trump's side. And if you're holding all the leverage, holding all the Trump cards mid-negotiation, well, then your demands are going to be met every time. So if something happens, we should assume that demands from the other side were met when he endorses some uniparty candidate. We have to assume that his demands from the other side were met. And we don't always know what those demands are right off the bat. But we can see the results of the negotiation. And to think that Trump is just getting rolled on all these things while he keeps winning in the collective consciousness at greater levels all the time, that doesn't make any sense at all. So he must be ahead in these negotiations. And we see the progress being reported in these negotiations when it comes to, again, our supposed foreign adversaries. And it all represents progress, which is why the left is trying to claim that Donald Trump, once again, is a Russian stooge and asset. That's the comeback to the Tulsi Gabbard stuff, which we will also get back into in just a few minutes. This was Donald Trump earlier today. Breaking news. We have just achieved a big and important win in our historic lawsuit against 60 Minutes, CBS, and Paramount. Just like ABC and George Slopadopoulos, CBS and its corporate owners knew that they defrauded the American people and were desperate to settle. Paramount, CBS, and 60 Minutes have today paid $16 million in settlement, and we also anticipate receiving $20 million more from the new owners in advertising, PSAs, or similar programming for a total of over $36 million. This is another in a long line of victories over the fake news media, who we are holding to account for their widespread fraud and deceit. The Wall Street Journal, the failing New York Times, the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN, and all other mainstream media liars are on notice that the days of them being allowed to deceive the American people are over. Make America great again. That's a pretty serious claim. And if you think about this in combination with the Colbert settlement, or Colbert cancellation, I should say, well, what do we have when we're looking at this big picture? Because the federal government does regulate this industry, which means that the industry and the government are colluding to make sure that the uniparty's needs are met. Okay? That's what regulation under the uniparty means. It means that the government works with the corporate world to make sure the global regime's agenda is implemented by the corporations. That's what regulation is for. We're told that it's for saving our lives and protecting us from lies. I mean, honestly, hold on. Now we can combine those two things in one. I have to give you this video in celebration of Stephen Colbert. Oh, gosh. Oh, no. Hold on. Remember this?
Scene.
That is so embarrassing to watch. So shameful. Oh my gosh. Hold on. I want to find where he's actually dancing with these things. Ah, give it to me. Now. I think you all know the infamous Colbert vaccine dance. So you just put it all together. The corporations and the government implement the global regime's agenda. And if you think about their news coverage relative to the government, if a legitimate government was to regulate the media companies. One of those pieces of regulation would then have to be political fairness, staying out of the political process. And that's never been a problem because the Uniparty has controlled the government and they have not gone after the media. They wouldn't call the media the enemy of the people, and the media are enemy combatants. And by the way, so are influencers, okay? They are foreign mercenaries. That's how they should be seen. And instead we're like, oh, they're the most powerful voices in MAGA. No, they're not. They're supporting the Uniparty. They're enemy combatants in an info war. And they're like the biggest, probably best soldiers they've got. They're tricking the enemy into believing that the enemy are the good guys. Mind-blowing. So we have a media that represents enemy combatants in the info war. And we now have someone in charge of the government who's not interested in the Uniparty's program of the media and government colluding to implement the global regime's agenda and the propaganda messaging from the regime, from the intelligence communities, from the military-industrial complex. If that was the sort of thing that you were going to stop in network shows, which shows would you be able to go after? Well, the news shows and these late night shows, okay? You're not going to go after scripted soap operas and their primetime shows and their sitcoms, right? You're not going to go after cops or what do they call that? Rescue 911. Are those still on? I don't know. Oh, man. So it seems like Trump is taking away the ability for these media networks to get away with lying to the public. And I think that is probably the explanation of the freak out and all of the conspiracy theories. I mean, the projection from these people, honestly. Donald Trump is taking a bribe from CBS Paramount to allow them to merge. That's what's happening. That's not what's happening. Can you explain that same dynamic with all of these other media organizations? Of course not. Okay? Because it's not real. The real dynamic is Trump is changing the way that government and media interact. And eventually, the federal government should be out of all of this stuff. Okay? We should not have our airwaves regulated by the government. It doesn't matter that we think now it's a good government. First of all, I don't think that. You might think it, and fine if you do. I'm not saying anything bad about Trump, but we don't have a good government, okay? We don't even have a legitimate government. The Congress and the Senate are illegitimate, okay? So the idea that they are not enemy combatants is also strange to me, to be honest, because we see them often doing the same thing that Donald Trump is doing, and they announce it right after he does it. Like, we'll have this example later today. Maybe I'll end up returning to it. But today we had Tim Burchett and Una Banca saying that they're going to get Ghislaine Maxwell to testify. They're going to subpoena her to testify before the House Oversight Committee right after we hear that the DOJ is going to do that. So it seems like in the enemy combatant sense, it seems like they could just be trying to reroute this. They were already planning on this part of the story. There's a number of interpretations. We'll watch it play out and we'll see what happens. But I did mention I hope if Una Panuna is out there somewhere, she's not offended that I made her wait for that after my first mention. And while we are there, let us take a look at Rumble Rants, Cara MAGA, $10 APL. See, that's what I thought. All right. Well, thank goodness we have that out of the way. And congratulations to Una Panuna for announcing that she's doing something on Twitter again. Maybe she's just the person who gets to announce these things and people will pay attention to her. If that's what it is, I'm all for it. Go ahead, Una. I don't want you to have a bad life. I want you to have a great life. Okay. Let us continue one more entertainment story and then we'll get off of this subject. We don't do it a whole lot, so I thought there were a number of interesting stories that seem to have some connection here. South Park deal signals at least one bit of Paramount sale chaos is resolved. This is from today in Market Watch. Paramount Global has reached a 5-year, $1.5 billion global streaming deal with the creators of the long-running animated hit South Park. The reported agreement comes after weeks of tension between the two sides that had delayed the premiere of the show's 27th season. It also comes amid broader unrest at the company as it seeks to close its sale to David Ellison's Skydance Media. $1.5 billion for a few seasons of South Park that those guys make each episode in like a week. They have a documentary called 6 Days to Air, which is honestly amazing. It is amazing that they can put that show together so quickly from concept to out on TV and have it be that good and that funny and stick around for that long. South Park is amazing. And I know that they're not on the right side of everything, okay? But they're pretty good. And especially for mainstream entertainment, they are incredible. $1.5 billion, though, that's unbelievable. And did that say 3-year deal? I just want to pull that back up. 5-year deal. So $300 million a year. Colbert was costing them $100 million per year. So South Park is that much better than Colbert. What does that tell you about our culture, even the mainstream culture? They are not on the same page as boomer ladies. Sorry, boomer ladies. I know, not all boomer ladies. Let's keep going. Speaking of David Ellison, let's jump to quickly Larry Ellison of Oracle, assuming I can find this. Here we are. This is Fox Business from this morning, I think, or maybe perhaps yesterday. Yeah, today. Trump's AI vision takes shape as Oracle and OpenAI expand massive Stargate infrastructure project. And we just heard last week about how OpenAI's Sam Altman is Trump's new best new billionaire friend. He's replaced Elon Musk with his arch enemy, Sam Altman. Oracle and OpenAI have inked an agreement to further develop the Stargate project as part of a broader pledge to expand artificial intelligence infrastructure in the United States. The two companies made the announcement on Tuesday, promising an additional 4.5 gigawatts of Stargate data center capacity, a move expected to create over 100,000 jobs across operations, construction, and indirect roles such as manufacturing and local services. The new agreement continues a commitment to invest $500 billion in U.S.-based AI infrastructure over the next 4 years. And we remember Larry Ellison at the White House early on in this current Trump administration. Larry Ellison and Sam Altman coming together with Masayoshi Son to announce this massive Stargate AI data infrastructure project, which I said at the time might be a Bitcoin infrastructure project because the setup is virtually the same in how they operate, or similar enough that one could be masked as the other easily. Larry Ellison, again, I've said this a million times, but Oracle has that TikTok data. They were the key player in the 2020 TikTok deal that we were told the courts said couldn't happen, as if what the courts say actually matters in a real world sense. It doesn't, okay? They are overridden. And I would suggest, by the way, that the Congress and the Senate are being overridden. Trump is implementing a program, and the Congress and the Senate have to get on board in whatever way works to make the program keep moving forward. They don't have a choice. It is the reversal of the uniparty's method. The uniparty method would be the president is out there as the avatar of the agenda, making the pitch for we need this or we need that. You know, Obama, there's a school shooting, and then Obama runs to the television and says that with nothing like this can ever happen again, we need to ban guns. Okay. Or Trayvon Martin happens and Barack Obama runs to the television cameras and says, that could have been my son. Always the political agenda is going to follow the event there. These stories are, as I was saying, playing out from years ago. I think that is actually what is happening right now. I think that we can see that happening rather frequently. And when stuff like this is occurring, you have to look back at those days and see these storylines coming together. Okay. In the same period of time, weeks, we're talking here, we're seeing the CBS, Skydance, Paramount merger and the settlement between the Ellisons and Trump. We have Stargate pressing forward, which could have all sorts of additional meanings, and hopefully we'll get to some of that today. And you have the eventual resolution of this TikTok scenario, and we could be getting that in August. We could be getting it in September. They can always delay it and delay it and delay it. Again, that's one of the pieces of the leverage scenario. It has to be. Otherwise, Trump would just finish and conclude this storyline. It's being played out now for 5 years so that it can have the proper effect when it all is finally released to the public. The end is not in doubt. Of course it's not in doubt. Again, they had this settled 5 years ago. Then we were told that the courts stopped it. And we all just pretended that was true. And like nothing had changed. Of course it changed. Okay? We've seen again and again, the plans Trump put in place in 2020 coming back around 5 years later. Plans with Russia, plans with China, plans with Israel, plans with TikTok. A lot of stuff Trump tried to put in place. The trade deal with China is what I was talking about. A lot of the stuff that Trump put in place in 2020 is coming back around now. What does that mean for the last 5 years? Did it actually change? They were able to thwart Trump, and now he's finally got enough power again that he's publicly recognized as president, that he can get all these exact same things done. Of course, that's not what's happening. Okay? Joe Biden was a fake president. Okay. It will be interesting to see where the Larry Ellison stuff goes. And I think that TikTok, when that happens, is going to be a crucial moment in the parallel apparatus of the information war, especially if that ends up under Trump media. I think it damn well might. Also, interestingly, Trump media just yesterday bought $2 billion worth of Bitcoin to put in a Bitcoin treasury under the stock ticker DJT, which is Trump Media and Technology Group and Truth Social and all of that. And Truth Social and Rumble Cloud are partners. We will see what else gets pulled into this space, but they have crypto projects. They have DeFi projects that are building that parallel infrastructure. At some point, there's going to be an on switch. And I think that TikTok is going to signal that to be imminent, which is why they've protested it for this long and fought it off for this long. And so just imagine you know that as the enemy to be coming, and you keep getting bled out like this, okay? They think there's going to be this big movement when we have a government shutdown. They think there's going to be this big movement when Trump fires Jerome Powell. They think there's going to be a big movement when the TikTok deal finally concludes. And Trump just keeps rugging them and rugging them and rugging them and saying, you know what? We're just going to do it later. Thank you for your participation in this. You have made your case to the public again. Every time you make your case to the public, they believe it less. They are more prone to see what the trick is and how they are what the hoodwinking is targeting at them, how the attempt to manipulate them is being directed, I should say. And at that point, sooner or later, the cycle winds back and forth. These are the insane people, not insane, insane, not insane. We talked about that last time. Over time, the regime makes itself sound insane. No one believes it anymore. Their conspiracy theories, as we just saw, their explanations and excuses, none of it is believed. And the thing just keeps marching forward. And Trump gathers more momentum, and MAGA grows, and the number of people tuned out from the central narrative increases. All of these things are progress. We are going to hit these waypoints sooner or later. Okay, let's switch gears here. I mean, it's InfoWars stuff, but certainly not entertainment industry related, unless it's just all actors. And you know what? Maybe it is. So the former fake first son, Hunter Biden, has been doing the media rounds for whatever reason. He's trying to make himself look good. I don't know. I don't think he has a book coming out. I don't know what the intended purpose from a regime perspective could be in getting Hunter Biden out there, unless they are trying to draw fire away from the Russiagate stuff. They think that Hunter's going to go out there and be able to say all the things that other Democrats can't say. He's just going to put it all bluntly so people get it. These interviews are not looking good for him as far as the interpretation where Hunter Biden is an informant, a longtime informant who turned his laptop over the way he had agreed to, okay, so that the FBI could then retrieve it. In that scenario, Hunter Biden is being tasked to go out and make Democrats look absolutely awful. And I honestly believe that interpretation makes more sense to me and maps onto reality better than trying to figure out some way that Hunter Biden is going to distract from some other scandal that's going to be affecting the Democrats. I don't think it could possibly be true. Anyhow, a warning, earmuffs. Hunter Biden has a very, very filthy mouth.
One, am I going to be like all these Democrats say, you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigration. Fuck you. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you got food on your fucking table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your fucking garden? Who do you think is here by the fucking sheer fucking just grit and will that they figured out a way to get here because they thought that they could give themselves and their family a better chance. And he's somehow convinced all of us that these people are the fucking criminals?
All I can think about is the dynamic in the pre-Civil War era and how slaves were argued, how arguments were made on behalf of slavery as an institution, though under different language. And I think we can see that. Hunter Biden is advocating for slavery, and they won't call it slavery because the promise is that they will get a better life when they come here. And they can have that better life, at least for their kids, if their kids seem to be the sorts of foreigners that can really help the global regime implement its agenda. And that could mean that they are students qualified to go to one of the Ivy League schools as a DEI candidate, or foreigners who are well qualified for being part of MS-13 and the cartels and committing crimes on behalf of the regime. So slaves are awfully useful. And they were awfully useful back in the Civil War era. We're being told that we can only have a prosperous society with and because of these slaves. I don't personally think that's very true at all. And who knows? We're going to have robots and then they can do all the slaves' work. But this is what Hunter Biden is advocating for, slavery. Doesn't seem anything short of that. You know, they can say, yes, we give them some dirty fiat money, makes them feel real good. We give them free health care. They're real mad about that right now, by the way. Let me just bring this up real quick. I didn't think I was going to get to it today, but we might as well hit it quickly here if I can find it. Maybe I can't. Maybe I didn't even grab it. Anyway, there was a story that they are, I think a judge is being asked to put in a injunction against Donald Trump being able to cut various avenues off from Medicaid for illegals. You know, we're hearing from the Uniparty that Trump is threatening to destroy Medicaid and Medicare. What he's doing is taking the illegals out of it and ending the government's funding of healthcare for illegal aliens while American citizens don't have healthcare. Okay. So they get their slave wages, they get free healthcare, and they get free housing, and their kids will probably go to an indoctrination center for free, of course, public schools that they definitely aren't paying property taxes for. And then they will probably get scholarships to prestigious colleges and universities. That's how it was in the past, at least. Hunter Biden is advocating for slavery. Maybe I wonder if we won't see an actual case begin to be made that these are not slaves, and if they were, it would be okay. That would be the next step in the regime's agenda. And of course, you know, they want to quote unquote free the slaves. How do you free the slaves? Amnesty. That's what it would be. They would give them their citizenship. So let's continue. I hope that my tiny dog going off in the other room is not tracking through the mic. Going to check the chat real quick on Rumble and on the other platforms here. Hello to YouTube. Hello to Substack. Okay. Where are we? Hunter Biden. This one is rather amazing. It is an absolute tirade, and he swears an awful lot. So once again, earmuffs.
But fuck him. Fuck him and everybody around him. I don't have to be fucking nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. Fucking George Clooney is not a fucking actor. He is a fucking, I don't know what he is. He's a brand. And by the way, and God bless him. You know what? He supposedly treats his friends really well. You know what I mean? Buys them things. And he's got a really great place in Lake Como. And he's great friends with Barack Obama. Fuck you. What do you have to do with fucking anything? Why do I have to fucking listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his fucking life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the fucking New York Times to me and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 fucking years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama, not because of fucking David Axelrod. And David Plouffe, and all of these guys, and the Pod Save America guys, who were junior fucking speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars. The Anita Dunns of the world, who's made $40, $50 million off the Democratic Party. They're all going to insert their judgment over a man who has figured out, unlike anybody else, how to get elected to the United States Senate over 7 times, how to pass more legislation than any president in history, how to have a better midterm election than anybody in history, and how to garner more votes than any president that has ever run. And they're going to replace their judgment for his. Not to mention, who's Jake Tapper's audience? Jake Tapper,
my mom or something. I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
For real though, I don't even think it's your mom anymore.
No.
By the numbers, what influence does Jake Tapper have over anything? He has the smallest audience on cable news, and beyond that, I think that the book is right now on Amazon that he put out. I mean, his ratings just went to shit after he put the book out. You know, they did a 2-week infomercial for it. I mean, it was such a money grab, such a disservice to everybody that he serves with.
It's rather amazing. I am trying to find my copy of the report on the Biden laptop by Marco Polo, because there was a text message from Hunter Biden that said, I'm not going to get the quote correct, unfortunately, although maybe I can find it. Hold for processing for just a second here. I should be able to find this. I know I have it in numerous places. Ay. Let's skip it. Anyhow, it reminds me of a message that Hunter sent saying essentially that the only way his dad could redeem himself was by running and winning in 2020. And we're told that's what he did. And Hunter obviously still takes some amount of credit for that, at least on Joe Biden's behalf, that he got the most votes anyone ever of anyone in all of history. Fake votes, fake election, fake president. So who cares? None of that will be part of history. So it's certainly not a record. I would say then Trump has the record, 77 this year. And I guess probably the record in 2020 as well, which would have been 74. That would have been 8 million more votes than the highest total of all time, which was Barack Obama, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he had one higher than that once. But anyhow, so Hunter is going off on Obama, the Obama media sphere, and Obama's advisors, and George Clooney, and in some sense, the celebrity culture surrounding the Democrat Party, where an actor like George Clooney hosts this event in Los Angeles with Obama and Biden. And if you remember, that's the event where Barack Obama had to slowly lead the enfeebled Joe Biden off the stage because he didn't know what was going on. And he wasn't able to comport himself on stage while he was answering questions or anything like that. And then we were told by the media that those were cheap fakes, like deep fakes, except real video. Real video that communicates to the public a message that is inconvenient for the regime and the Uniparty. That's what a cheap fake is. So Hunter Biden goes off on Obama, on George Clooney. He goes full support of immigration. He basically made a pro-slavery argument there. We need this low-cost labor, these people working in these terrible conditions, and we need to subsidize their livelihood in this country so that we can have all these other things, okay? And from Hunter's perspective, as a wealthy adult scion of a massively corrupt political actor who has all this money, who deals with all this money, who's been raised a certain way, probably with many servants, he just thinks that people need their servants. We got to have these servants. We need slavery because there's things that need to be done, and we're not going to do them. That's really where we're at right now. So Hunter Biden is making the Democrat establishment look absolutely terrible. It's basically spray fire against everyone who isn't Joe Biden. And I bet that that's going to continue too, because once we get into the auto pen stuff, you know who's not going to be held to blame for all that? Joe Biden. So if this whole thing with Hunter being an informant and the rest of it, Biden being some weird character that was on TV for a few years, mostly as comedy, if that's the scenario we're talking about, you're watching the culmination of that where Hunter Biden just goes and suicide bombs the Democrat Party. This is hilarious. I don't know what positive benefit they think any of this is going to have. I cannot imagine it's any. Did Hunter get people on his side? There might be some deranged Trump-hating liberals out there who think, that's the kind of fighter we need. Maybe Hunter should be Hunter should be the nominee in 2028. If we are still pretending to have elections in 2028, A, we've probably lost the war. But B, if we're still at that point and the negotiation and the leverage just keeps playing out that slowly over time because people really don't want to get it, Hunter Biden, 2028, best choice ever. I would be 100% down with that. That would be really, really very funny. I hope we don't still have fake elections by that point. That would be awful to still be going down that path. Garrett Keene, $10 on Rumble. Polymath Anon gifted me my first subscription. Thank you so much. This rant is for them. And of course, the venerable Chris Paul. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks to Polymath Anon for chipping in some subscriptions. The venerable Chris Paul. I don't know that I've been called venerable before, so that is very kind of you. Now I feel extra serious. That increases my gravitas as a purveyor of news and information. Except I'm not a purveyor of news and information. I'm a person who tells you how the news is trying to exploit you. That is about it. This is The Hill. The memo, Trump Murdoch story, takes dramatic new turn with Wall Street Journal lawsuit. This is from Saturday. The tangled and tumultuous relationship between President Trump and media mogul Rupert Murdoch has taken a new dramatic turn. Trump is suing Murdoch, his company, News Corporation, and the Wall Street Journal's parent company. The suit was filed on Friday, following through on earlier social media postings from the president. I'm going to sue his ass off and that of his third-rate newspaper, Trump warned regarding Murdoch in a post on Thursday evening. On Friday morning, he followed up with another post. I look forward to getting Rupert Murdoch to testify in my lawsuit against him and his pile of garbage newspaper, the Wall Street Journal. That will be an interesting experience. Now, I'm not sure if it was on this show or just on DPH on Saturday night that I mentioned in Trump's first round of Truth Social posts, he said Mr. Murdoch. I think we did cover that on Friday. And I was wondering aloud whether that was some indication that he was not going after Lachlan Murdoch and was instead going after the Murdoch family, or some indication that he was not going after Rupert necessarily, that he might be going after Lachlan or the Murdoch organization somehow in that form that eliminated Rupert, because Rupert is no longer the person calling the shots at Fox News. So again, we have to look at the model where we're talking about some historical instance that is only being covered truthfully now. Okay. And we can think directly about the Russiagate hoax because that's going to tie into the same Epstein thing. And Trump has overlapped them on the timeline so that they can't be uncoupled from one another. Fox News has been a willing participant in the global regime agenda to the extent that they've not been under full control of Donald Trump the entire time. Okay, I understand that the upside down is always an analysis that must be considered. We can put that aside for right now and admit, yes, if Trump has controlled Fox News and all these other media organizations since 2020 or since 2017 or whatever it is, okay, then some of this changes. But Rupert Murdoch, despite not making the decisions right now, has to be held to account, as does his news empire, NewsCorp, specifically Fox News. Fox News called Arizona on election night in 2020. And Arizona did not go for Joe Biden. And then they had to recall, and then they finally announced it days later. But they had already put into the minds of the American public that Joe Biden had a chance to win an election in which he was being dominated. Hundreds of thousands of votes when the polls closed at the end of the night. And then we know what happened in the morning and on from there. So what I'm saying is it's entirely possible that Rupert Murdoch has things that Rupert Murdoch must be held accountable for. And they are being translated to the public in this layer here. And I think that that may well be what's going on. I know that people think that is crazy and conspiratorial, but I'm telling you what I see as these patterns continue emerging. And we know for a fact that the central narrative is not correct. It's never correct. They're making it up. So let's see what Trump is going after in this Murdoch suit. There are just a couple parts of this that I want to hit from the actual court filing. Let me see if this works. Yeah, that'll work, right? Yes. Okay. Nature of the action. Grounded in facts, shaped by experience, and defined by editorial standards that don't waver. Dow Jones and Company Incorporated, the publisher of the Wall Street Journal newspaper, proudly proclaims this maxim across the banner of its website, holding itself out to the world as an honest and forthcoming broker of newsworthy material. And yet, defendants' malicious, deliberate, and despicable actions that give rise to this action show plainly that they do not practice what they preach. And Dow Jones Company is listed in this suit as well. Dow Jones doing business as the Wall Street Journal, NewsCorp, Keith Rupert Murdoch, an individual, Robert Thompson, Khadijah Safdar, and Joseph Palazzolo. And Safdar and Palazzolo are the reporters of the story. Let's continue. On July 17th, 2025, defendants Khadijah Safdar and Joseph Palazzolo co-authored and published an article largely focused on President Trump that falsely claimed that he authored, drew, and signed a card to wish the late and utterly disgraced Jeffrey Epstein a happy 50th birthday, to attempt and inextricably link President Trump to Epstein. Defendants Safdar and Palazzolo falsely claimed that the salacious language of the letter is contained within a hand-drawn naked woman, which was created with a heavy marker. Worse, defendants Safdar and Palazzolo falsely represented as fact that President Trump drew the naked woman's breasts and signed his name Donald below her waist, quote, mimicking pubic hair. Perplexingly, however, the letter is a typewritten note styled as an imaginary conversation between Trump and Epstein written in the third person. Indeed, defendants Safdar and Palazzolo provide a series of quotes from the non-existent letter, claiming that the letter was written in third person, beginning with a voiceover interluding a conversation, followed by a purported dialogue between President Trump and Epstein as if they were characters in a play. So, non-existent letter. That is what we are going with in this filing. And I just want to check. I think this is Todd Blanche. Brito, LLC. Alejandro Brito is the one bringing this action. I thought it was, no, I'm confusing myself. So they are, the Trump side of things is calling the letter non-existent. That is probably important because I would suggest that they probably know what they're talking about and that there is no letter. And remember, the proof of this letter's existence is that this letter could exist based on Trump doing drawings of Manhattan's skyline. He won a contest. He won $275 for his drawing of a skyline. And therefore, he could have drawn this naked woman and could have signed his name, mimicking pubic hair. And that's all you need to know. As long as they have found a plausible explanation for what they are claiming, whether or not the elements of the explanation are true, they get to claim the whole thing is true. Well, I've showed you a way that it could be true, and you can't disprove the way it could be true that I just made up. Therefore, this is the default claim. They make the claim from authority. The official sources make a claim, and that is moved into the default as true category. Okay? All they have to do then with the public is supply a plausible explanation for how the thing they're saying happened could have happened. They don't have to prove it. They just have to argue that it could be true. And that's enough, because that's how much weight we give to these authorities to create our world and our reality for us, even if it's just our political reality. We have no reason to do that. Trump is saying it's non-existent. That would look awfully bad to put that in this major filing against a global media magnate who is then just going to submit to the court as evidence this supposed letter. That would be a rather shocking series of events, which I don't anticipate we will see. Let's keep going. On the one hand, defendants Safdar and Palazzolo falsely pass off as fact that President Trump in 2003 wrote, drew, and signed this letter. And on the other hand, defendants Safdar and Palazzolo failed to attach the letter, failed to attach the alleged drawing, failed to show proof that President Trump authored or signed any such letter, and failed to explain how this purported letter was obtained. The reason for those failures is because no authentic letter or drawing exists. Defendants concocted this story to malign President Trump's character and integrity and deceptively portray him in a false light. Despite the glaring failures in journalistic ethics and standards of accurate reporting, defendants Dow Jones and NewsCorp, at the direction of defendants Murdoch and Thompson, published to the world the false, defamatory, and malignant statements authored by defendants Safdar and Palazzolo. Hundreds of millions of people have already viewed the false and defamatory statements published by defendants. And given the time of the defendants' article, which shows their malicious intent behind it, the overwhelming financial and reputational harm suffered by President Trump will continue to multiply. And we're told to ignore all of that because Trump is a public figure. But there is a real cost to that. And there's a real cost to our stability as a society, which again, I would suggest to you is evidence of the media as a foreign enemy combatant. Why would a pro-American outlet attempt to use false information to separate Trump from his base? Why would they create the societal instability that they create if they were pro-American and pro-sovereign and pro-nationalist and pro the American people? They're none of those things. They're propaganda outlets for the global regime in an information war, which means they are effectively a military unit of the enemy. And we're still like, yeah, well, we got to take what they say as true until we can prove otherwise. No, you don't have to do that. So here are some of the examples that they're pointing out in the lawsuit. The article contains the following false statements that are defamatory per se. the letter bearing Trump's name, these are quotes from the article, and that in bold are the false statements. And so it's false that there's a letter bearing Trump's name, I think is the claim there, which was reviewed by the journal, is bawdy, like others in the album. It contains several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman, another unsubstantiated factual claim, which appears to be hand-drawn with a heavy marker, another unsubstantiated factual claim. A pair of small arcs denotes the woman's breasts, and the future president's signature is a squiggly Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. Again, another unsubstantiated fact-based claim. It isn't clear how the letter with Trump's signature was prepared. Inside the outline of the naked woman was a typewritten note styled as an imaginary conversation between Trump and Epstein, written in the third person. And again, that is an unsubstantiated factual claim. There must be more to life than having everything, the note began. And they cite Donald's responses in there. The lawsuit claims that all of those are false and defamatory. One of the things I thought was interesting about this is that they mention all of the major mainstream media on Twitter, etc., reposts of this story. The Lincoln Project, known as an anti-Trump organization, republished the article to all 2.8 million of its followers. As of this writing, it has received over 229,700 unique impressions. Colin Rugg, a journalist with over 1.8 million followers on X, republished several of the false and defamatory statements. It's received 3.5 million unique impressions. And they keep going. Keith Olbermann, Ken Klippenstein, Seth Abramson. And Seth Abramson is the totally broken Bernie bro who I have been blocked by on every social media platform for like 10 years because he is such a clown. He used to just write conspiracy theories daily. He's like a science fiction romance poet who also began talking about politics and writing clickbait for Bernie bros, conspiracy theories about how Bernie was going to actually win the Democrat nomination in 2016 with one of those contested nomination campaigns at the national convention. Somehow it never came to pass. So all these people, Trump notes that they are the ones who have spread these claims. Okay. Now, I have two more citations here. These are from the claims in count one of defamation per se. I think that this is the meat of the claim right here. The statements were published by defendants with actual malice, oppression, and fraud in that they were aware at the time of the falsity of the publication and thus made said publications in bad faith out of disdain and ill will directed towards plaintiff without any regard for the truth. And we can go down further to get the same for arguments per quote. The statements were published by defendants with actual malice, oppression, and fraud in that they were aware at the time of the falsity of the publication and thus made said publications in bad faith out of disdain and ill will directed toward plaintiff without any regard for the truth. And I think that that is probably a very solid case to be made about that article, considering that on the Trump side, they must know it's not true, that there is no letter there. So what is happening? Are these reporters, again, the same reporter, Palazzolo, who did the Stormy Daniels story years ago? Isn't that crazy? Just a rerun from them. And now he's actually being sued by Donald Trump. He put the Stormy Daniels story out. I guess that was, 2017 or 2018 or something. I think his article was in 2017. I remember looking at it the other day. You can check me in the chat if I'm wrong. That guy is now being sued by Trump. All these many years later, after we saw the whole Stormy Daniels thing play out, and they actually Alvin Bragg up there convicted Donald Trump or whatever it was. Can't even remember. It's fake indictments, which will obviously go away at some point. The whole thing was so silly. What a ridiculous performance. Remember when the green man set himself on fire outside the courtroom? And the reason he was able to break through police lines is that all the police were up at Columbia University putting down the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas protests is what they called them. I mean, none of it's believable. So we have a replay of that former story. These people need to be held to account for past actions. Here is the vehicle by which Donald Trump can hold them to account, hold the media organizations to account, puts on the record, yes, they were explicitly anti-Trump in these ways. They did it intentionally to harm President Trump and his political movement because they're foreign enemy combatants. All right. So the transfer in responsibilities of Fox News and News Corp have already been switched to the Sun. We're dealing with the father's malfeasance, potentially, right? Similar situation might develop with Oracle, Larry Ellison passing off to David Ellison. It seems like that's not the same, but who knows what we might find out in the future about Oracle's, whatever Oracle would have done on behalf of the global regime that would make them similarly enemy combatants. And we can think of our corporations that way. Honestly, I don't think that, as long as we understand that the designation of someone as an enemy combatant is not reason to go commit vigilante violence against that enemy combatant, the organization or whatever, I think that this is a totally appropriate way to classify these organizations and to think of them. Okay. And we can wage soft war, obviously in the Bitcoin sense, but information war and psychological warfare, those things, their ability to successfully wage information and psychological warfare against us can be removed completely simply by us refusing to be hoodwinked, which is just stepping back from our urge to default to believing these news organizations when we know that they have lied forever. Okay. Let's continue with the Murdoch business. This also came, I think, on Friday. White House removes Wall Street Journal from Scotland press pool over Epstein bombshell, and this is in Politico. Actually, this was from just yesterday. Sorry. The White House is removing the Wall Street Journal from the pool of reporters covering the president's weekend trip to Scotland, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told Politico. The move follows the journal's report alleging that President Donald Trump sent a sexually suggestive message to Jeffrey Epstein in 2003. Trump has denied the existence of the letter, and Politico has not verified it, nor has anyone else, including the Wall Street Journal. Tarina Partee, a White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, had been scheduled to serve as the print pooler for the final 2 days of Trump's 4-day trip to his golf courses in Turnberry and Aberdeen. But the White House, which earlier this year took control of pool rotations from the White House Correspondents Association, removed her from the trip manifest, Leavitt said. So, Trump is exercising leverage by any means possible. And maybe we would be better off if we only had state media giving us this sort of information. If we did not have it pushed through the translation layer of the mainstream media. I don't know. I haven't spent much time thinking about that. Maybe that's wrong. But these pool organizations have not performed a service for the American people. They literally take everything and make it fast propaganda. They move propaganda from the official realm to the public consciousness realm. They do not need special privileged access. Honest news organizations who don't have these problems can put out the pool reports, and then these news outlets can analyze those pool reports. That's how I think of it. Who knows how I'll think of it in the future. But we can see what they have done to have their access limited seems only obvious. One last thing on the fallout from this supposed Epstein claim. President Trump's, this is, hold on a second here. This is Dot Connecting Anons on X, formerly Twitter. President Trump's $10 billion defamation lawsuit against Rupert Murdoch and the Wall Street Journal has been assigned to Judge Darren P. Gales in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida. Judge Gales, 58, is a Barack Obama appointee who made history in 2014 when he was confirmed by a unanimous 98-0 Senate vote as the first openly gay African-American federal judge. Before his appointment, Gales served on Florida's state courts for a decade, having been appointed to county court by Republican Governor Jeb Bush in 2004 and elevated to circuit court by Republican Governor Charlie Crist in 2011. Imagine that. Barack Obama selecting a Jeb Bush, Charlie Crist appointed judge because he was black and gay. Incredible, isn't it? What a perfect candidate for the federal circuit if you want your entire system to be corrupted. One side of the uniparty brings this man in, gives him kind of the imprimatur of moderation or conservatism, and then he gets hired into the federal court system appointed by Barack Obama based on being gay and black. Now, again, that's the surface interpretation, okay? Maybe there's a world where Barack Obama's a secret white hat and Judge Gales is the greatest judge of all time, all right? I don't know Judge Gales. I don't have a long history of Judge Gales. I'm not trying to cast aspersions here. I'm just saying, if Obama is who everybody believes him to be at this point, and even more now, then there's no reason to trust the guy with that background. Appointed by Obama, then Jeb, and Charlie Crist. Charlie Crist, by the way, was a Republican governor of Florida who then went independent and served as, and maybe Democrat even in the last time around, and served as the punching bag for Ron DeSantis when he won his 2022 midterm election, which was a fake election, of course. Really is amazing. Just uniparty. Both sides of the uniparty working together and putting this man in this position. And again, people would think, well, shouldn't we worry about the judges on these cases? I would suggest that no, we shouldn't, because even if they make terrible decisions, they'll just be contested up to the Supreme Court. And we get the result there. And that's when the rules are actually settled upon. Okay, the lines are painted on the field. The rule book is printed. We know these are the constraints, and we will play the game within these constraints and, of course, win. This is Attorney General Pam Bondi this morning. Statement from DAG, Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche. Okay, so this is Blanche. Bondi is just reposting what Blanche said. This Department of Justice does not shy away from uncomfortable truths nor from the responsibility to pursue justice wherever the facts may lead. The joint statement by the DOJ and FBI of July 6th remains as accurate today as it was when it was written. Namely, in that recent thorough review of the files maintained by the FBI in the Epstein case, no evidence was uncovered that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. President Trump has told us to release all credible evidence if Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say. Therefore, at the direction of Attorney General Bondi, I have communicated with counsel for Ms. Maxwell to determine whether she would be willing to speak with prosecutors from the department. I anticipate meeting with Maxwell in the coming days. Until now, no administration on behalf of the department had inquired about her willingness to meet with the government. That changes now. So we might get testimony directly from Ghislaine Maxwell that she definitely didn't give any time before now. We're going to get it all brand new. And for the first time, anybody's going to find out what she has to say. Do you think they already know what she has to say? Yeah, of course she knows. They know what she has to say. Did they know for years? It's entirely possible that they did. And a very astute thinker pointed that out today in my Telegram chat. So hat tip to that person whose name I am not remembering right now. Apologies. Here is Caitlin Collins on X, formerly Twitter. Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney, David Oscar Marcus, tells CNN, I can confirm that we were in discussions with the government and that Ghislaine will always testify truthfully. We are grateful to President Trump for his commitment to uncovering the truth in this case. And the post currently has 666,000 views. So Ghislaine might testify. This attorney, David Marcus. I should have tracked this down this morning. I meant to. David Oscar Marcus. Hold for processing. David Oscar Marcus, I believe that I read this morning, is representing Hillary Clinton in Trump v. Clinton. If that's the case, that would be insane. David Oscar Marcus is serving as counsel for Hillary Clinton in an appellate lawsuit brought by Donald Trump and others. Specifically, he's listed as attorney for appellee Hillary Clinton in Donald Trump et al. V. Hillary Clinton et al. At appeal before the 11th Circuit, filed in October of 2023. So this same man, who is the attorney for Ghislaine Maxwell, is the attorney for Hillary Clinton in Trump v. Clinton. That's crazy. I don't know what it means. I'm not pretending I do, because I could make a case for it either direction. But wow.
Wow. Wowie, wow, wow, wow.
Wowie, wow, 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 indeed. Hopefully we'll find out soon what all of that means. Isn't it terrible to only have stories that are halfway done and not be given an emotional take that you can say around the water cooler? Why won't he tell me how to emote? This is Todd Blanche following up to Pam Bondi's post. Justice demands courage. For the first time, the Department of Justice is reaching out to Ghislaine Maxwell to ask, what do you know? At Pam Bondi's direction, I've contacted her counsel. I intend to meet with her soon. No one is above the law, and no lead is off limits. So I suspect that we will sooner or later hear from Ghislaine Maxwell. And I can imagine that as soon as she says anything she's going to say, the people who hate Trump will say one thing, and the people who don't hate Trump will say that thing they're saying isn't true. And it will also happen in reverse, as it does for all of these things. And eventually one of those sides is going to win because they will have argued their way through the case, substantiated their case, and then attracted a majority of believers onto their side. That's what happens with everything. So we can expect it to continue happening in everything, at least for the foreseeable future. And then when we understand that, we should go as far as possible in the direction opposite what they're doing and figure out the contours of what that opposite is. Because when you recognize an inversion, when you recognize one of those things that everybody always says, it's not true. In fact, it's just totally destructive. It is the opposite case of true. You go as far in the opposite direction as possible because you know that they invert things. Vaccines are safe and effective, for instance. Vaccines are not safe. Vaccines are not effective. And the diseases that vaccines purport to cure were being caused by the same people making the vaccines. So all they have to do is stop causing those diseases or reclassify that set of symptoms as some other new disease, and then the vaccine worked. Okay? So that is not, saying vaccines are safe and effective is not a statement of questionable truth where the truth is, okay, well, they are safe and effective, but like not as safe and effective as they're saying. It's not that. It is a total inversion of the truth. Vaccines are toxic experimental substances that can't protect you from diseases that can't kill you. That's all they are. There's not one that's different than that. They're all that way. And now I'm going to get flagged on YouTube. Oh, man. Hold on 1 second for processing here. All right. Starborn, or AKA Beth in the Rumble chat, just sent me this with a $5 Rumble rant, and thank you for that. Ghislaine Maxwell will oppose unsealing of grand jury materials related to her and Jeffrey Epstein. So this same attorney will probably be representing that, I would expect, that case to convince the judge not to release the grand jury testimony. Very interesting wrinkle. And Kristen Holmes of CNN was responding to her own post that says, federal judge overseeing case of Ghislaine Maxwell says he needs more info before he can unseal grand jury transcripts requested by the DOJ. Set initial deadline of next Tuesday for DOJ to provide info, including why disclosure is being sought and if Maxwell opposes disclosure. And so word has come since that tweet that Maxwell does oppose the disclosure. What could be in the grand jury trials that Ghislaine Maxwell does not want the public to see? Or what could be in the grand jury files and testimony that wouldn't be said by Ghislaine Maxwell in her personal direct testimony that she's going to give to the DOJ or to the House Oversight Committee? Can you imagine a House Oversight Committee hearing where Una Panuna is questioning Ghislaine Maxwell? I feel like that's the kind of thing we're going to see. And then, after the fact, the grand jury files will be released, which will disprove Maxwell's testimony. And it'll probably happen one, and then the other one happens 3 days later. And you have those 3 days where you're uncomfortable. Oh, man, maybe Trump really did this thing. Ghislaine Maxwell, she knew everything that Epstein was doing. She has no reason to lie. She's already in prison for 20 years. Blah, 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 blah. We'll hear that whole thing. And then 3 days later, they'll be like, oh, actually, the grand jury testimony totally refutes that thing Ghislaine Maxwell said. Let's see. Who knows? Maybe Ghislaine Maxwell was put in witness protection when the Jeffrey Epstein story was concluded in 2019. You remember she was hidden out at that house in New Hampshire or something, just in the woods. That's where she was being held. Just saying. Lots of weird twists and turns that could still happen in this story. And Ghislaine Maxwell famously has a picture with Kevin Spacey. They're sitting in the thrones of the British royals. No one is ever allowed to sit there. Think of how much these people must be part of that regime to sit there. Yeah, maybe. Or it's a humiliation ritual for the British royals. And the British royals are stuck in a perpetual humiliation ritual. Just saying. Something else could be going on. Kevin Spacey was out there firing away last week, saying that there was no evidence against him, that all the claims against him were made up. Well, that's the case. Let's see it. I know from friends of mine in LA that Kevin Spacey was actually a creep to young male actors. I heard that story 15 years ago from one of my, at the time, closest friends. So I think he was probably telling me the truth. The story was primarily about his great escape from that situation. All right. This is Axios from earlier today. Axios, the outlet that gets all the leaks now. Axios, the outlet that Trump is not suing yet. Trump's forever grudge ties Epstein Files into Russia hoax. So it is Trump's forever grudge that is bringing Russiagate back around while the Jeffrey Epstein thing is out. And we are being told by outlets like Axios that Trump is bringing the Russiagate stuff back to distract from the Epstein stuff. This is just Trump's permanent grudge. Imagine framing a coup in America, an overthrow of American government, an attempted overthrow at that point, an attempt to thwart the will of the American people. Imagine all of that, treason, obviously, being classified as a permanent grudge. Trump's just got a grudge. He doesn't have a constitutional and moral duty to prosecute these people. He's just got a grudge. He's doing it for his ego, like he always is. That's the case Trump deranged people have been making to us for a decade. Let's get to the article. President Trump is redirecting his fury over the Jeffrey Epstein files into one of MAGA's oldest obsessions, punishing Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the officials involved in the 2016 Russia investigation. In Trump's view, any documents linking him to Epstein are a hoax cooked up by the same forces behind the Russia probe. To him, it's all one story, a years-long witch hunt that plagued his presidency from day one. And that is true. It is that. Seizing, at least to the extent that this isn't all just only a show, a scripted drama playing out on television, like a docudrama, basically. If we are all watching a docudrama and these are just actors, well then fine. Otherwise, they have absolutely attempted to thwart Donald Trump as president. Seizing on new criminal referrals by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, a TV character herself, Trump on Sunday posted an AI-generated video on Truth Social showing Obama being arrested by the FBI. Let me just click on this for a second and see if it'll bring it up directly to Truth Social. Let's do it. Wait, oh, damn it. Okay, but at least it gave me the Truth Social link. Here is the direct link to the post. Let's see the video that Trump reposted. It's fun. AI. Just remember, this is AI. I'm not spreading disinformation, I swear.
No one, especially the president, is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one 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 is above the law. Oh, son of a bitch.
All right, you get the picture. That's just going to be flagged on YouTube because that song came in, and now I'm going to have a copyright violation, and they're going to make it so you can't monetize it. It's unbelievable. Anyhow, the video there that was playing during that song portion at the end is an AI mock-up of Trump and Obama sitting in the Oval Office next to one another, and the FBI coming in and restraining and cuffing Barack Obama to take him away and prosecute him. So that is what Donald Trump reposted the other day, a montage of Democrats suggesting that no one is above the law. Probably change your name to no one. Get away with anything. And then we had the AI video that upset a lot of people because, Barack Obama is still their special boy. He's our first black president. He's so cool. He's friends with Jay-Z and Beyonce. His male wife is a hero for black women. Crazy. Let's get back to Axios. After a week of stewing over the Epstein scandal, MAGA was jolted by a new memo from Gabbard accusing Obama administration officials of a treasonous conspiracy to sabotage Trump's presidency in 2016. The new evidence centers on findings from the Obama-era intelligence community that Russia didn't alter vote tallies by hacking election infrastructure. Gabbard alleges that senior Obama officials suppressed or manipulated these internal assessments to support a broader narrative that Russia had intervened in the 2016 election to help Trump. And we can leave that there. So Epstein tying in to Russiagate, Tulsi Gabbard with her conspiracy theories. Here is MSNBC from the Maddow blog, but this is not Rachel Maddow. This is Rachel Maddow's male underling who writes for the Maddow blog. DNI Gabbard concocts odd treasonous conspiracy theory, eyes Russia probe prosecutions. Now, this is a very funny and conspiracy-ridden article, and it's not too long. By all appearances, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has been struggling for months. On Capitol Hill, she's become the subject of bipartisan ridicule, with one Republican senator recently questioning whether she should be medicated. And this, of course, this blowback was over the Israel-Iran business, and Tulsi having put out the report, which is what the intelligence community assessment said, that Iran was nowhere close to making nuclear weapons. And while we are briefly on that subject, I may as well get to something I thought I would probably miss, but can handle quickly here. Where is it? Here it is. Iran's foreign minister, this is Trump on Truth Social. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, whatever, on the Iran nuclear sites, quote, damages are very severe. They are destroyed, end quote. Of course they are, just like I said, and we will do it again if necessary. As interviewed by Brett Baer, fake news CNN should immediately fire their phony reporter and apologize to me and the great pilots who, quote unquote, obliterated Iran's nuclear sites. CNN is a major ratings loser, as is MSNBC. So Iran says that Trump obliterated their nuclear program. And of course they were going to eventually say this. It's not the Ayatollah saying it, mind you. It's the foreign minister, the guy who's going all around the world to negotiate the end of this Iranian agreement, or to listen to the other side in their negotiations and then transfer those back to the sovereign side. And I think that that's probably happening with world leaders regularly. They are just messengers, really, if that. They might just be physical, real props to act as messenger so that the public knows what the viewpoint is. I don't know. Anyhow, a major Iranian official saying, oh yeah, Trump's right. They totally destroyed that stuff. Does that mean it's true? No, it does not. And I know that makes people so uncomfortable. Are you saying Trump's lying? No, I'm saying Trump's waging an info war. That's what I'm saying. Okay. I'm saying Iran was not making magical bombs in a secret underground lair. That's what I'm saying. And we did not Top Gun Maverick those bombs out of existence. That's what I'm saying. Back to the MSNBC article. In the White House, it's worse. In recent months, there's been reporting from major outlets about the intelligence chief being sidelined, being left out of important meetings, and falling out of favor in the Oval Office. Indeed, in the run-up to the president launching a preemptive military strike in Iran, Donald Trump twice told reporters out loud and on camera that he didn't care what Gabbard thought. If the DNI were looking for a way to return to the president's good graces, she apparently found one. And we're going to skip these quotes from fake news media. Late Friday afternoon, Gabbard's Directors Initiative Group unveiled a report with a title that read, Declassified Evidence of Obama Administration Conspiracy to Subvert President Trump's 2016 Victory and Presidency. In an accompanying release, the DNI added, the information we are releasing today clearly shows there was a treasonous conspiracy in 2016 committed by officials at the highest level of our government. And I just realized that I do not have this on screen right now. It was over-the-top nonsense that Gabbard was quick to bring to Fox News during multiple on-air appearances, including an interview in which she raised the prospect of an anti-Trump coup. And of course it was a coup. We've watched the coup play out for a decade. But it's just a conspiracy theory, according to MSNBC. The president appeared delighted. I lost count of how many items he published to his social media platform about Gabbard's claims, but the Daily Beast tallied, quote, at least 17 times, which sounds about right. I mean, come on. Those who apparently believe it's their job to parrot Trump played their predictable roles. And it goes on. Let's jump down to the end here. I remember this being rather funny. Hold on a second. Okay, this is where I want to go. Broadly speaking, there are two main points to Gabbard's pitch. The first is that Democrat officials in the Obama administration somehow manufactured the entire Russia scandal after Trump defeated Clinton in the 2016 race, following a period in which the intelligence community was largely indifferent to Vladimir Putin's tactics before. We already know that's not true. Not only did administration officials warn Americans about Russian efforts weeks before Election Day, but those same officials famously brought their concerns to Congress only to be brushed off by GOP leaders. And again, this point is being made on the basis that people are unable to distinguish between the good twin and the evil twin, and instead just think anything done in Russia is Russia doing that thing. It's not Russia doing that thing. It's either the Putin faction in Russia doing that thing, or it's the evil twin faction in Russia doing that thing. And when we talk about electronic interference and information interference, then it really doesn't matter where it's coming from, because the regime will just use the different locations as the messengers, the different countries, I should say, as the messengers for whatever messaging they need to disseminate to the world in order to propagandize the world. And so saying that the GOP wanted to stop these claims about Russian interference does not mean that they were were full bore against any claims of Russian interference. Anyhow, these administration officials informing the American public, is that what happened? Is it your memory that Barack Obama as president and Joe Biden as his vice president, knowing that Hillary Clinton had concocted this entire scheme to subvert the election and then subvert the Trump presidency, they spied on his campaign, they spied on the executive office of the president. Obama and Biden knew that and didn't tell the American public. Instead, they went and campaigned for Hillary Clinton. How do you get away with doing that? Should we really believe that the officials came and warned the Americans? They didn't, obviously. Gabbard focused heavily on the fact that the Obama White House sought a revised assessment the month after Trump's electoral victory, and the changes were made at this point. But as the Bulwark explained, this supposed scandal rests on a crude bait and switch. And I actually do want to read this because the Bulwark article that they mention is by this lunatic named Kathy Young, who is as never Trump pro-globalist as you could possibly find. In fact, let me see if I can just pull this up quickly. Oh, man. Here it is. Perfect. So this is the Bulwark. Gabbard garbles 2016 Russiagate intelligence. The subheadline here: her memo is smoke and mirrors, but it boosts both MAGA and Kremlin narratives. So the never Trumper at the Bulwark, neoconservative, is saying Russian collusion again. This is helping Donald Trump and Russia. And that's the worst thing. And you kind of have to think at some point, Russia has always been the enemy of this global regime. Who are the people in this global regime? Well, you could say the Khazarian mafia, obviously, and a lot of those old criminal enterprise aspects that have existed in Europe for hundreds and hundreds of years and took over the British monarchy. They established the City of London and now operate as global central bankers. The controlling forces in the world have always believed that Russia was their enemy, except when they had successfully overthrown Russia in the Bolshevik era. And there may be other times in history as well. Why is Russia always the enemy? And isn't it crazy that they can always say whatever Trump does is helping Russia and our enemies, even though they're not our enemies, they're the regime's enemies. Always we are told that helping MAGA and helping Russia is the worst possible thing. That is why these people feel justified in claiming to be never Trump. That is the veil of patriotism that they wear while being never Trump. So this quote is from Kathy Young, but this is back to the MSNBC article. So this is from that Bulwark article. A quick look at the media reports Gabbard cites show that they weren't talking about altering the election outcome through cyber attacks on election infrastructure. That is actual tampering with the vote count. Rather, the claims of election interference via cyber warfare concerned, as the Washington Post put it, individuals with connections to the Russian government who provided WikiLeaks with thousands of hacked emails from the Democrat National Committee and others, including Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman. Was this a new post-election assessment, as Gabbard seems to claim? Hardly. The same conclusion was announced at the start of the October 7th, 2016 joint statement issued by the DNI and the Department of Homeland Security on behalf of 17 intelligence agencies. So you see, the Russian government gave WikiLeaks those hacked emails from the DNC. It wasn't Seth Rich. Definitely wasn't Seth Rich. It was definitely, what do they call him? Huggy Bear or something like that? Someone in the chat will definitely remember. But it definitely wasn't Seth Rich. It was these Russian, Guccifer. Was that Guccifer 2.0? It's all starting to become a blur at this point. All this old news that is new news, that is old news. So this is all predicated on the idea that the Russians actually hacked the election and that they used social media data to influence the election via Cambridge Analytica. They have lots of these stories about how it is actually true that Russia interfered to help Donald Trump. And because Russia interfered to help Donald Trump, they claim, that means that none of this stuff is true because they announced those interference attempts. So the Obama administration actually didn't hide anything from the American public. Let's close this article out. All of this dovetails with the second problem with Gabbard's findings. The DNI leaned heavily into the fact that there was no evidence of Russia targeting U.S. vote counting machines and election infrastructure. That's true, but also irrelevant. Democrat officials never claimed that Russia targeted U.S. vote counting machines and election infrastructure. Looking ahead, the fact that Gabbard released a pitiful report might seem unimportant. The DNI already lacked credibility. So the fact that her findings make her appear like an even more brazen partisan activist will strike some as trivial. And again, you got to understand that's the perception from that side. I don't know how much that's the perception from the MAGA side of things. True MAGA, I don't think really cares about Tulsi Gabbard one way or another. And then all of Normie MAGA loves Tulsi Gabbard because they think she's like attractive and heroic and does a good job handling her weapon on at the gun range. Looking ahead, the fact that Gabbard released But Gabbard has also spent the last 3 days claiming that she's now pushing for indictments and prosecutions of Obama administration officials who committed outrageous crimes that don't appear to have actually happened in reality. Well, I guess we'll see, Steve. In other words, the release of a misguided report on Trump's Russia scandal wasn't just a desperate ploy to make the president happy. It was also an apparent first step toward pushing the Justice Department to act on a silly partisan stunt. And we are now seeing the boomerang from the Biden indictments, where the fake and illegitimate president tasked his Department of Justice and these special counsels that were hired and sent his people to Georgia or invited the Georgia official, I believe, the attorney, to Washington. And then they sent, I think his name was, it sounds like Matt Costanzo, but that's wrong. I know it's wrong. Somebody will have it in the chat or whatever. But they sent a Justice Department official up to New York to deal with Alvin Bragg. So they were operating these political stunts. They can't be anything more than that. They were trying to imprison Donald Trump, if you believe any of the story, which I don't believe. We were shown that they were trying to imprison Trump. They may have at prior times. They've certainly gone after him for a bunch of things that he didn't do. They've interfered with the election. They've defamed him to no end. They have taken every institution under their control and set each one of those institutions up to specifically oppose Donald Trump for this whole time. And so I think it's important that we don't lose sight of that. But consider what's being told to mainstream standard issue villagers on the Uniparty left, the people who would still be watching Rachel Maddow, the people who would still be reading MSNBC's website. Forget about all that. Focus only on the messaging. What are they trying to get their audience to believe? They're trying to get them to believe that nothing is happening. Nothing at all is going on. Therefore, if some move is made where something is going on, they will create massive public backlash to whatever's happening, to the extent that this demographic even exists. But that is what the InfoOp is designed to accomplish. And it is no surprise. I've said many times over the years, it amazes me that these people are so cruel to their own audiences. They make these people retarded on purpose and unrelentingly, shamelessly. They ruin these people's lives by giving them terrible information with which they make horrendous, horrific decisions in their lives. They are as addicted to the soap opera as anyone is. And their soap opera addiction is making it so that they wage their own private wars against the people closest to them all the time, because they think all the people who have woken up are their like avowed enemies. who are trying to kill them, who want Donald Trump, the Hitler-esque dictator, to take over the country and oppress people like them. They actually believe that because of this media. And so it's important to understand when they are attempting to do this and think about what the purpose would be, again, because something big is going on the other side. If they were going to report this straight as though it was news, because it is news, and the opinion has to be inserted into all the news, because we were told with no shame whatsoever about 5 years ago that the responsibility of the news is to push a social agenda. So everything must be relayed with that social agenda in mind. So we know that that is their motivation. What happens to the divide in our country, to the extent that there is a true divide, and there is, it's just not the 50-50 right, left, Democrat, Republican, red, blue divide, MAGA versus everyone else is more accurate. But of course, they misrepresent who MAGA is and include most of the Republican establishment in MAGA when they're talking about these divides. But if there is an actual divide, it's between, I think there are two divides, between the people who are awake and paying attention and corresponding to reality. Most of them back Trump to the extent that they are politically engaged at all. Then we have all the apathetic people who will just go whichever way the wind blows. And then we have a very small 5, 10, 15% of the country who are still committed standard issue villagers on the uniparty left, who will go online, go on social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, and repost this garbage and call people conspiracy theorists for believing that contemporaneous evidence that's released that shows the Obama administration doing terrible things to subvert the country doesn't show that. It's just a conspiracy theory. And because those people still have the benefit of larger social media platforms, the benefit of never getting censored, even though anti-regime content gets censored and removed in the algorithm, or suppressed in the algorithm, I should say. They still have that on their side. They still have the centers of cultural power when it comes to celebrities and whatever else, although you could argue that the UFC, for instance, is the parallel version of that same political interest from the other side. Is the UFC more popular than movies made by, who are the, Mark Ruffalo? Yeah, the UFC is way more popular. So they still hold those areas of culture, though. And if you accept that the divide really is about 50-50, you would think that everyone on that side of the divide is into that celebrity culture. And therefore, something like 50% of the people are going to believe this nonsense. And they have that effect because of the size of the public voice and the prominence in our culture. And so they play on that bias and that imbalance constantly. Let's keep going. This is Donald Trump on Truth Social yesterday. Actually, let's pause for 1 second. What we're going to do is, well, we're not going to do anything. Okay, so we're just going to go to the Trump Truth Social post. We're not going to do anything. Hold for processing. Trump says Obama himself manufactured the Russia hoax. Crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe, and numerous others participated in this, the crime of the century. Irrefutable evidence, a major threat to our country. This is the President of the United States of America and the Commander-in-Chief of the American military. That's what we're led to believe. If we just have military government and Trump is the public-facing aspect of that government, then maybe he's not actually controlling the thing. But there's some relationship. It's one of those two. Okay. We can see from Joe Biden being called president for 4 years that there is no direct connection between the person deemed to be in that role by the general public and the commander-in-chief of the military, because Joe Biden had no control over that whatsoever. So the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, the president of the United States of America, is accusing a former president of treason in no uncertain terms. And treason, of course, carries the death penalty. And we are getting people on the so-called right, like Hugh Hewitt, out there saying, well, you know, the Constitution has a definition of treason, and this isn't that. Okay, Kami, explain how this isn't that. Because it is that. All right? I know what it says. Let's go to the definition of treason in the Constitution. Yeah. Here it is. Treason is the only crime defined in the U.S. Constitution, according to Article 3, Section 3. And the only crime defined in the Constitution, man, now the federal government just has thousands and thousands and thousands of crimes that you could be committing without even knowing you're committing it. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of two witnesses to the same overt act or on confession in open court. And that is the same standard, I believe, that the Bible used to use. And someone can check me on that. I mean, for guilt, you have to have multiple witnesses. So giving aid and comfort to the enemy. That's how it's treason. Okay? The enemy is the foreign occupying government. We're pretending that Obama just did it for his, like, out of his own accord. Hugh Hewitt, the very serious Hugh Hewitt, the star radio show host, Hugh Hewitt, the true conservative. He just thinks Obama did all this on his own. Obama just said one day, you know what? You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to subvert our election. That would be awesome. It's amazing that these people just assume that all of these events are happening organically and independently from the rest of it. Obama was carrying out tasks for the benefit of the global regime and the implementation of its agenda via the uniparty in the United States. That's the only thing Obama was ever doing. Okay? He is operating on behalf of the global entity. The global entity is definitionally a foreign power. It's not the United States of America, even when it is operating in the United States of America. Okay? So they are definitely giving aid and comfort to the enemy. And that is a case that can be taken to the public and made successfully. But Hugh Hewitt is making sure that case can't be made successfully by attempting to cut it off at the pass with conservatives and saying, guys, you know, I know Trump's saying this, and I know he's your favorite president and probably the greatest president in American history. I'm really on your side about everything. But this isn't treason. This doesn't rise to the level of treason. Hugh Hewitt has such a dumb voice. I don't know if I'm doing a decent impression of Hugh Hewitt, but he's just so annoying. He's one of those guys that sounds like he's super serious and just isn't actually serious at all. Clown. These people are just intelligence assets who are paid by way of independent establishment Republican donor organizations and foreign governments. It's crazy that these people are seen as allies or on our side. Yes, and I know secret white hats are everywhere. I get it. I get it. Always, always, always with the secret white hats. Let's keep going. This is Donald Trump from the Oval Office today. He was meeting with the president of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos, and it seems like they had a really good meeting. I might as well just read, because I don't think we're going to get down that far today. I might as well just read Trump's statement on that meeting. He took quite a few questions. President Ferdinand Marcos of the Philippines is just leaving the White House with all of his many representatives. It was a beautiful visit, and we concluded our trade deal, whereby the Philippines is going open market with the United States and zero tariffs. The Philippines will pay a 19% tariff. In addition, we will work together militarily. It was a great honor to be with the president. He is highly respected in his country, as he should be. He is also a very good and tough negotiator. We extend our warmest regards to the wonderful people of the Philippines. So we have a Philippine trade deal and 19% on their side, 0% on our side. That's some serious leverage. At some point, there's going to be the Philippine story will come all the way back around, because the same story that's been happening elsewhere has been happening in the Philippines, and stolen elections, Smartmatic, it ties into all of those things. There are, I guess, more than rumors, but I think some founded speculation that it is a hub for various forms of trafficking. So Philippine stuff, I think we're going to be getting in the future, and I would really wonder how much of that they talked about. But as promised, Trump from that meeting.
If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they... Look, he's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming. So President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill.
It's treason, and it involves a whole lot of people, because once the public accepts that the Obama and Clinton teams did that, and the Biden team as well, although the Biden thing, I think, as I said before, will probably end up being a little different than that. But the Obama and Clinton teams, them and everyone around them, are all complicit in treason, okay? A conspiracy to commit treason. Treason is the most serious of all the crimes. There were many crimes that were committed, obviously. And you can go to the Trump v. Clinton et al. Lawsuit and just read the whole case. And it lays out a number of the claims that I would include in Rico Grande. And, we see with these corporations, with that stuff changing, Polymath mentioned drainage in the chat. Drainage is something that has to occur with these organizations that had coordinated and colluded to attempt to overthrow the United States of America. And all of them have to be held to account at some point. And unless we're going to get the full story and they'll be held to account at that point, and maybe they will, but maybe they're being held to account before that. I totally went off track there. They would be held to account in ways that we would not be told about. That was the point I was trying to make. There would be a cover story for their accountability, hence the drainage model. And I think that we can take a look at all of these companies the big tech firms, some of these data and AI firms. Who knows what these partnerships really are? They're probably successful negotiations on Trump's part, making these regime entities pay for all of these solutions that Trump is initiating. That is what the pattern suggests in my estimation. I'll say it that way. Let's keep going with Trump from this meeting in the White House today.
Barack Hussein Obama is the ringleader. Hillary Clinton was right there with him, and so was Sleepy Joe Biden, and so were the rest of them. Comey, Clapper, the whole group. And they tried to rig an election, and they got caught. And then they did rig the election in 2020. And then because I knew I won that election by a lot, I did it a third time, and I won in a landslide. Every swing state won the popular vote. But I won that all the same way in 2020. And look at the damage that was caused.
So they attempted to rig the election, and it didn't work. And that's always been something of a mystery with how things are playing out right now. If you think about the 2016 election, was it too big to rig? Or was it just not under the control of the people on that side who thought they had controlled it? Was their control stripped at some point? If that was known in advance by the Trump side of things, well, then you don't really need Obama and Biden to come out and tell the public that Trump actually didn't collude with Russia in any way, and that Hillary Clinton had funded the creation of the Steele dossier and all of the rumor mongering that happened in the spring and summer of 2016. Just saying, there's other ways this could go. It's going to be interesting as it all kind of unravels here. And it does seem to all be finally unraveling. There was an article I enjoyed in The American Thinker. This is J.B. Shirk. And I'm going to jump down to the end, or close to the end, because it's a bit too long to go through on the show. So you understand the backstory. We don't need to go through the backstory. He writes, consider how many thousands of government agents from the Department of Justice, Department of State, and broader intelligence community were ordered to waste years on the job chasing ghosts conjured by Clinton, Obama, Rice, Brennan, Lynch, Comey, Clapper, and their many co-conspirators. And you could port the exact same model onto the January 6th investigation and how much time was wasted by federal agents pursuing American citizens over January 6th, assuming that it is as we were told it was. Could all of these people have been investigating something else? Maybe. Consider all the real foreign and domestic threats that were entirely ignored because the U.S. government was dedicating substantial resources to an intelligence operation meant to frame President Trump as a Russian spy. Consider how much harm Obama, Clinton, and their allies in government offices and corporate newsrooms caused to America by fomenting social division and political strife based on abject lies. And the anti-Russian stuff is part of what supported the ridiculous, very brutal invasion narrative cycle. The Obama administration and Clinton campaign essentially conducted a color revolution against the United States, something I've been saying on this podcast for years. It was their intention to instigate a mass political uprising that would force President Trump from office. They conspired to overthrow the U.S. government and install a new one more amenable to their interests. What these untouchable elites did was textbook treason and sedition. We will never have a full accounting of the toll Obama and Clinton's lies had on America. It seems reasonable to assume that their lies cost lives. And how many terrorist attacks could have been prevented if intelligence agents had been working on things that mattered? Well, okay, Normie. The answer is none of them, because the intelligence committee or community was directing the terrorist operations, obviously. All of the treasonous, where did I go? Here we are. There we are. Okay. Who really murdered Seth Rich? Apologies. How many Republicans have been bankrupted in courtrooms while defending themselves against malicious prosecutions arising from the Russia collusion hoax? All of the treasonous criminals who perpetrated this fraud upon the American people made the United States weaker, more divided, and more vulnerable. That's Obama's real legacy. No one should minimize the seriousness of these crimes. Unfortunately, even in conservative circles, it is common to hear someone describe the Russian collusion hoax as a Democrat Party dirty trick. This was not a dirty trick. This was treason. A dirty trick might aptly describe social media satirist Douglas Mackey's trolling humor when he posted a joke by Hillary Clinton's supporters to vote by text, encouraging Hillary Clinton's supporters to vote by text in 2016. And he goes on. While Obama-Biden prosecutors were happy to go after meme makers for engaging in fake conspiracies to spread misinformation, they completely ignored the Obama-Clinton conspiracy to manufacture the Russia collusion hoax. Unlike Mackey's harmless dirty trick, the repercussions of the Obama-Clinton color revolution were very real. Setting aside the fact that President Trump's first term was undermined by a 2-year special counsel investigation run by Democrats, when the departing Obama administration decided to blame Russia for Hillary's 2016 loss, the conspirators compounded tensions between the world's two dominant nuclear powers for political reasons. As the meeting records from Gabbard's declassification show, Obama's National Security Council principals agreed to recommend sanctioning of certain members of the Russian military intelligence and foreign intelligence chains of command responsible for cyber operations as a response to cyber activity that attempted to influence or interfere with U.S. elections. Before Obama left office, he expelled Russian diplomats and left incoming President Trump with a diplomatic hornet's nest. As Internet sleuth Mays points out, I think that's the meme maker Mays. Shortly after Obama's scapegoating of Russia, Senators John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and Amy Klobuchar traveled to Ukraine and later held a press conference during which they claimed that Russia attacked the U.S. by hacking the 2016 election. Obama and his co-conspirators advanced an intelligence operation that could have instigated a direct U.S.-Russia confrontation, or war, as he says, sorry. There's no dirty trick that's deadly treason against the United States and the American people. And I would agree. It's no dirty trick. It's also not a Republican conspiracy theory. Sorry, Democrats. I know that is very sad. What do we have left? One more Trump clip. We are coming down to the wire here.
That you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about.
That is really the things that people should be talking about in the press. I lied. There's one more Trump clip. Apologies for my mistake. Last one here. This hits James Comey, the Horowitz IG report, and the auto pen in one fell swoop.
The FBI under Comey was crooked as hell. He was one of the most crooked. Everybody should read the Horowitz report. Unfortunately, Bill Barr didn't use it. But the Horowitz report, not appointed by me, It was a report on Comey and the FBI. It is one of the worst shots at a human being I think I've ever seen. In fact, the New York Times did an editorial that was one of the worst editorials I've ever seen about anybody. That was about Comey. You ought to go back and get, and Barr didn't use it because he didn't have the guts to use it or something happened. I don't know. Too bad. He went to Mr. Durham. Instead of doing the Durham, all they had to use is the Horowitz report. And I always felt badly for Horowitz, frankly, because he's a Democrat, I guess. He was appointed by a Democrat. But that report has gotten lost, and it shouldn't be lost. You should all go back. It should be mandatory reading. Go back and read the Horowitz report on Comey and his cronies. And you'll see exactly. We're going to add that to all the stuff that we found. It just confirms it. But what we found is even more so. Now, we found absolute, this isn't like evidence, this is like proof, irrefutable proof that Obama was seditious, that Obama was trying to lead a coup. And it was with Hillary Clinton, with all these other people. But Obama headed it up. And, I get a kick when I hear everyone talks about people I never even heard of. It was this way. No. It was Obama. He headed it up. And it says so right in the papers. Got everything. This is the biggest scandal in the history of our country. And it really goes on to even the auto pen, because it all relates to the same thing. It all started the same sick minds. You have an auto pen, which is a tremendous, we don't have a president. We have an auto pen that signs everything. I'll bet you sign everything. You don't have auto pens. Everybody. Who doesn't sign? You're the president of a country. But it's all that whole thing leading right up to the end of it is the auto pen. And the auto pen was used by people, and Biden knew nothing about it. They were signing documents that he knew nothing about. As an example, they released the Unselect Committee of Liability. The Unselect Committee spent 2 years grilling everybody, and then they destroyed all the evidence. You know why? Because the evidence made them guilty, and he gave them all a pardon. The Cheney, all the scum that was on the Unselect Committee, Cryan, Adam Kinzinger, and Democrats, and he gave.
All right. So all the way through to the auto pen, all of this is the same long-running scandal, an attempted coup against Donald Trump. It's been going the entire time. And a lot of the talk right now is about statute of limitations. There's obviously no statute of limitations on treason and sedition. And the RICO model allows for any crime in continuance of the conspiracy, or any act in continuance of the conspiracy, to reset the statute of limitations clock over and over again. And I would suggest that the conspiracy is ongoing, so there's no statute of limitations concern in the RICO environment at all. And I think that we're going to see eventually things go that direction. One more clip, this one from Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who just one day stopped talking about his package forever. This is a few minutes long.
Tulsi Gabbard has done, the DNI chief, declassifying hundreds of documents that seem to suggest that manufactured intelligence was at play here with the Obama administration regarding this Russian collusion hoax. I've heard Stephen Miller call it a seditious conspiracy. I've heard Tulsi Gabbard call it a treasonous conspiracy. You're a constitutional guy. What do you see in this exactly? How do you term it?
I don't know how to summarize it by way of description in a snappy phrase, but I will tell you it is deeply problematic. And before I became Speaker of the House, I served on the House Judiciary Committee, which had jurisdiction over a lot of this. And we knew what was happening. We knew intuitively, and we were gathering the evidence as we were investigating all of this ourselves. We knew the Russia collusion thing was a hoax. They used it as a basis to attack the president mercilessly. I served on his impeachment defense teams twice. That would be unheard of in history, that a president would be impeached twice on such spurless claims. But in those processes, as we were preparing for those defenses, as we were investigating with our oversight responsibility in judiciary, we recognized that the people who are being called out now were involved in a scheme. We knew that it was a shameless, false set of accusations, and yet they perpetuated the lie on the American people, and they looked right into the camera and just lied, clearly. And they knew what they were up to the whole time. So there must be accountability for that. Because what it does ultimately, the greatest threat of all this is not just what they've done to President Trump as an individual, it's what they're doing to the institutions, even broader than that. They have diminished the people's faith in our system of justice itself, in the institution of the Department of Justice, in the institution of the FBI. And those are critical functions that are played in a constitutional republic. And so we're in the process of restoring trust and rebuilding the people's belief in our system of justice itself. And it's an extraordinary challenge that was brought about because people were involved in a sinister plot. And so there must be accountability.
You say there must be accountability. The DOJ will work on the criminal aspect of this. What's the role of the House here specifically? I mean, people want to see subpoenas. They want to see depositions. They want to see whether it be Brennan, Clapper, potentially the former president of the United States. Are you willing to go down that route? Because a lot of people want to see some of these folks questioned under oath.
Of course. Look, I think we have a responsibility to follow the truth where it leads and to do it in an unbiased fashion, to do effectively the opposite of what that other team did. They're engaged in a partisan political plot to take down their foe and the other party. We need to be about the rule of law and bringing order to the chaos and searching out the truth, because the American people are owed those answers. So we have some very bright, very capable, very strong leaders at Judiciary and Oversight, Chairman Jim Jordan, Chairman Jamie Comer, and the other committees that would be involved. And I do expect that whether there's a special counsel appointed, which some are suggesting, and or in conjunction with the House investigations, that we will get the answers, and there will be accountability to the extent that we're able to do that, referring people to the DOJ for prosecution and any other measure that is appropriate as we begin to uncover more of the facts.
Does it get tricky at all with the former president, President Obama, looking at what his role in this is and bringing him in for some sort of deposition, potential subpoena?
Well, listen, I mean, we have no concern about that. If it's uncomfortable for him, he shouldn't have been involved in overseeing this, which is what it appears to us has happened. There's a lot of allegations on the table. Our job is to go and follow each of those trails and to find out the truth. So those are very serious allegations with very serious implications, but we're going to have very serious people working on it, and we will get the answers.
Wartime Speaker Mike Johnson. Will you get the answers? Maybe you will. Maybe the answers will come from elsewhere. But what's important is that we are getting closer to full public understanding and acceptance of the fact that our country was overthrown. And people aren't going to get all the way there through this story cycle, but we're moving in that direction. Obama can't just brush all this stuff off anymore. This thing, they thought they had moved past it throughout the first term, throughout the 2020 election. Some of these stories have come back into play in 2020, 2021, 2022. Rerun comes back again. Trump is now sitting in the Oval Office accusing his predecessor of treason. And this is going to go wide to the American public, I would suspect. In fact, let me check to see if Trump has been firing off on Truth Social before we get out of here. West Virginia, Mike Braun, Gretchen Whitmer, Kentucky, trade agreement with Indonesia. All right, so nothing on this, but let's circle back to where we started, which was with the progressive ratchet and the idea that the uniparty, the regime, always tightens the screws on the American people and never goes back at all. And I think for the first time, Donald Trump is actually able to reverse that now. Think about what it means that we might see the first one of these uniparty politicians really genuinely, legitimately go down for everything that has been done by this regime for, hundreds of years. I would say 160 years at least, but we can go back much further than that. It's a new era. That's the point. Okay. It looks like Trump is reversing that ratchet on a number of things. And I would suggest that all the stories today are playing in to that same moment of culmination where all of these seemingly disconnected anti-Trump efforts finally come together in one big picture that the public can see and understand. I think we are inching closer to that. And as far as the reality side of it goes, I don't know what's going to happen. Okay. We're going to see Obama arrested. That would be great. I don't know that we're going to see it. I just don't. I hope that we see all those things. I just think that that is potentially a rug that we don't have to stand on. What we can do is make sure that everybody in the country knows that Obama and his team, the Democrat Party, but not just them, the Uniparty and the media apparatus, the entertainment industry, and all the rest of it are part of that same collusion and part of that same effort to take down Donald Trump. And finally, it seems like we might have those things reversed. I don't know if it's actually going to happen in reality, right? We'd love to watch them all go to prison. I know that that's everybody's dream. But if the American people know that they have done all this, and the American people are clamoring for accountability, we have a much higher likelihood of actually seeing something done. So that is a good reason not to blackpill on any potential rugs, because I think that things are moving and progressing in our direction all the time. And I've been making that case for at least, 4 years at this point. I don't think it's gotten worse for our side since January 6th of 2021. That was obviously a day that harmed the movement in kind of the public consciousness. But since then, it's basically just been all good on our side. So I'm going to check the chat and then get out of here. Thank you all very much for watching over on YouTube and watching over on Substack. The Abe Theory 21 arriving last minute. Do you think they can steal the midterms, however fake and gay they might be? Well, I guess that depends on how well we do in informing our family, friends, neighbors, and communities, however broad your given community is, about all of this stuff. Because if everybody knows that Obama committed treason and Hillary Clinton committed treason and Joe Biden committed treason, well, then everyone who touches them is also tainted. And virtually the entire Democrat Party has touched them and is therefore tainted. So are they going to be able to convince the American public that Democrats could win in the midterms next year? I don't see any way that's going to be true. I can't imagine that something happens that is so jarring in a narrative sense that would empower Democrats next year, especially another year plus of this stuff happening. And then Trump beginning the 250th birthday celebration. I cannot imagine there's going to be actual public momentum for a Democrat win. But that's not ultimately what's going to decide it. I said last year, I thought the best possible outcome would be to declare a Kamala Harris win because no one would ever believe it. And then we can immediately get to the point where we are investigating elections and getting the truth about our elections immediately out to the American public. Maybe something like that happens next year. I don't know. But midterms are something I do not care about at all and will not care about at all. I won't care about them right as they happen either. Okay. I just want to make that clear. Electoral politics don't matter at all. So there's no point in spending any time on it. All right. Like if there are scandals and headlines that touch other things, obviously I will talk about them. But otherwise, like, who cares how Republicans do in the midterms? Not me. I don't care, obviously, about how Democrats do either. I hope that there's a way that we can have no midterm elections and remove all of these people from office because they are all illegitimate. And they, too, are committing treason by pretending to hold public office on behalf of a uniparty faction in the United States without any legitimacy behind them holding office. And, the definition of treason in the Constitution, the founders thought of treason a little bit more broad-based than even that definition. Some of them thought it was treason simply to vote to pass a law that would violate the Constitution. And now we have only that because, of course, we passed an amendment that overturns the Constitution, and we were all told that all of that was legitimate and above board. But anyway, electoral politics, don't give two shits. All right. Rumble Me asked at the end, how is your book going, Chris? It is going fine, but it is becoming the sole focus of my attention, which means at some point I'll probably have to shut the show down on hiatus, as I've threatened to do at many instances. We shall see when that is. Okay. With that said, Friday, paid subscribers on Substack. That is the subscriber stream. It'll be available to watch on Substack and on Rumble Premium if you are a paid subscriber on Substack. If you are not a paid subscriber on Substack, that episode will be released at a later date. And with that, I will be back on Friday at the same reasonable time on the same reasonable podcast network. I don't have a network. Masks and lockdowns don't work. They lied to you about a pandemic. And Joe Biden was never president.
Well,
what?
You know who I am, don't you?
Well, you ain't Fiona Apple, and if you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass.
What's wrong with being an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times? What do you think, Max?
Do you want to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times?
Yeah, I think I'd like to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times.
It's not true. It's more true than I would perhaps prefer.
Can we stop this cruel game and allow the boy to keep one shred of dignity? For God's sakes! I can't stand to see him in all this pain! You vicious bastards! Let him move in with you! Is it so bad to see somebody happy? So just let him move in! For the love of God, let the boy move in with you! Good Lord!
And I will not let you down.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
What?
In my mind, that's the end game.
If you're listening for free and would like to support the show, the best way to do that is by signing up for a paid subscription at imyourmoderator.substack.com. You can find the info stream over on Telegram at t.me/veryreasonable. The merch site is cancelcouture.com, and for all my other links, you can visit linktree.com/imyourmoderator. And I'll see you soon. Down on the range.